Today is July 13, 2024. We're here to interview Mary Wallman, who is a survivor of the Holocaust. The videographer is Robert Wilson, the interviewer is Esther Andor, and we're doing this interview under the auspices of the USC Shoah Foundation. The interview will be deposited in the archives of the USC Shoah Foundation and the Montreal Holocaust Museum. The interview will be done in English. Today is July 13, 2024. We're here to interview Mary Wallman Borek, who's a survivor of the Holocaust. The interviewer is Esther Andor, the videographer is Robert Wilson. We're doing this interview under the auspices of the USC Shoah Foundation, and the video will be deposited in the archives of the Shoah Foundation and the Montreal Holocaust Museum. The interview will be conducted in English.
Recording.
Good afternoon, Mary.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for accepting to do this interview.
You're welcome.
My first question is if you could tell me your first name and last name and spell your last name.
My name is Mary Wallman Borek, B-O-R-E-K.
And Wallman?
W-O-L-M-A-N.
And what was your maiden name?
Borek.
And Mary was something else in Poland.
My Hebrew name is Malka.
No, and you had a Polish name, right?
Mania.
Mania. Could you tell me where you were born and when?
I was born on December 11th, 1934, in a shtetl called Szczebrzeszyn, Poland.
Could you spell that, the name of the town or the shtetl?
S-C-Z-E-B-R E-B-R C-Z-S-Z-Y-N.
Thank you. First, I would like to talk a little bit about your grandparents. Did you have any grandparent that you knew personally?
I only knew one grandfather, my father's father.
What was his name?
His name was Hune.
And you remember meeting him?
Visiting him?
Yeah, or meeting him.
Yes. I was afraid of him because he had a long beard.
Could you describe how he dressed?
I beg your pardon?
Could you describe how he dressed? What kind of...
Oh, he dressed what we call in Yiddish in a capote, like a long black coat down practically to the floor. That's all what I remember about him. And of course, a hat.
So he was a Hasidic? He was
a Hasidic, yes.
Where did he live?
He lived in Szczebrzeszyn.
Do you know what he did for a living?
I beg your pardon?
Do you know what he did for a living?
Not really.
And by any chance, you didn't know your grandmother, but do you know her name, your grandmother's name?
Yes, my grandmother's name was Rivka.
How about your mother's parents? What do you know about them?
Well, I did not know them because they died before I was born. I was named after my grandmother on my mother's side, which is Malka. And my grandfather's name was Chaim.
Chaim. What else do you know about them?
That's about all what I know about them.
How many children did they have, your mother's parents? They had your mother and who else?
They had 3 daughters and 1 son. My mother had 2 sisters and a brother.
Could you tell me their names?
Yes, my mother's name was Feichi. There was Baile, there was Perel, and there was Shie.
And do you know what happened to them during the war?
They perished in the shtetl, except of my mother.
Okay. How about your paternal grandparents? How many children did they have?
My father had 7 brothers. There were
7?
7 altogether, yes.
Who do you know by name of the 7?
Okay. I know Liza, which was my father. I know Beuman, which was a brother that remained alive in Belgium. Pesach, that lived in New York. Moshe, that perished. And I don't remember. Moshe, and I'm just thinking, and that's about all. I don't remember the other ones.
What happened to the other ones?
They all died in the shtetl
In the
by
shtetl.
itself.
You mentioned that he had two brothers who left the shtetl. Do you know when they left? Around what time?
The one that left for Belgium, he left when he was very, very young. That means before he was 21. So he was very young. And another one left the shtetl about to New York, Pesach, about 2 years before the war. But 37, 36, something like that.
What did he do in New York? What do you know about him?
He was a tailor.
And Binyamin, the one who left for Belgium?
He was in business. He had a store and he was selling hosiery and all that stuff.
Where in Belgium did he settle?
Pardon?
Where in Belgium did he settle?
Charleroi.
Charleroi. Okay. Do you know how he survived the war?
He was hidden. He paid and he was hidden by Belgian people.
With his family?
With his family, his wife, his son, and his daughter.
Okay. Now, your mother, when was she born? What year?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't remember what year she died. That's a good question. She died, she was 72. And she died on June the 12th, 1980. Let's go back and we'll figure it out.
So she was born in 1908.
Perfect, right.
Was she also from the shtetl?
Yes, yes.
Could you describe your mother in terms of appearance? What did she look like and how did she dress?
It depends when. When she's dressed in the shtetl. Well, my mother was a seamstress, so she always was dressed nicely. You know? Well, in the shtetl, I don't remember quite. I guess she was dressed according to the styles. And here she was dressed very plain, a skirt, a blouse. Or, my mother was always working. So, when she went to shul, occasionally, she dressed a little better or on occasions. But no, she wasn't really a model, let's call it this way.
And you mentioned she was a seamstress. Does it mean that she sew her own clothes even here in Montreal?
Oh, yes, she was working as a seamstress, yes.
And she did her own clothes. She would
Yes,
sew.
yes.
What kind of character was she?
Pardon?
What kind of character did she have?
She had a very warm personality. And she was more like, as I say, she was working, she was a housewife, she didn't mingle too much. She was more inside.
Do you know what kind of education she had?
Not really. Not really. I know she had problems with languages. She spoke very well Yiddish and Polish, but once it started to come in to learn French and English, that was a little problem, yes.
But you could read and write in Yiddish and in Polish.
Oh, definitely, yes.
You mentioned, when we talked before, I think you mentioned that her parents died when she was young and she had to work.
Yes.
So can you elaborate on that?
Not, well, she was about 8 years old when her father died. And she died, and her mother died just before I was born. I really don't know much of her past because she didn't really talk much about it. All I know is that she had to work, and they all had to work to maintain everything. What kind of for work, I don't know what she did. The only thing I know what later on, she started to learn how to be a seamstress.
Still in the shtetl.
Yeah, everything in the shtetl, that's right.
How did she meet your father?
Because they both belonged, well, she really did not belong. My father belonged in the Bund, and somehow, since she was working, so he organized all kind of rallies or whatever, and this is how he met her.
Could you tell me your father's name?
Liza.
Borek. And he was born when?
He was born 1903.
Okay. Could you describe him, what he looked like?
Oh, he was more of an outgoing person. Oh, yeah, he was an outgoing person. He always belonged everywhere and always had high positions. And yeah, he was, he fitted in everywhere, let's put it this way.
How did he dress?
How did
How did he dress?
But the same thing, like casually, and it came Yontif, or we went everywhere, shirt and tie, and nothing really out of the ordinary.
How religious were your parents?
My mother was a little bit religious, my father not at all.
So you mean what parts of the Jewish tradition did you observe, or did they observe in the
Well,
home?
my mother was lighting the Shabbos candles, went to the synagogue occasionally on Yontif. My father just absolutely nothing. Like, he didn't go to synagogue, he was smoking on Saturday, and he was really no religious. That did not, but he was a very Yiddishist, if I could express it that way,
How did it, in what way did it manifest itself that he was a Yiddishist? Or very,
with the Jewish literature, and you had to know how to write and how to read Yiddish and speak Yiddish and belong to Jewish organizations and so forth.
What kind of books do you remember in your home growing up?
What I remember?
Yeah.
It was a warm house. Like, I don't mean warm temperature-wise, but warm. A lot of people came. My father was always singing. He had a very nice voice. So whenever he was working, he was always singing, and I used to like to listen to his Jewish songs, It was a very warm environment in my parents' house.
Did your parents read?
Did they read?
Did they
Yes,
read?
yes, they both read, yes.
In what languages and what kind of
Yiddish.
books?
Yiddish.
And what kind of books? Do you remember authors they would
Yeah,
read?
sure. I remember they learned a lot from Peretz. That was their favorites, because Peretz was left, of course. That was their favorite. They read Shalom Aleichem a lot,
How about newspapers? Your father, you
Yes,
mentioned
the forwards.
forwards. But that was here in Montreal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the forwards is a very old newspaper. I think if they read newspapers in Shem Sheshet, it must have been the forwards also.
In Yiddish.
Oh yes, in Yiddish, of course.
You told me a story about when your mother would go to the shul on Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
Tell me that story.
Well, my mother was fasting, so she went to shul. My father did not go to shul. So after Nile, after all that, my father went to shul to pick her up. So she won't walk home alone in case she doesn't feel good or something. So he always went to, she said, okay, I'll go pick up Mommy, Bubby. I say Bubby, Mommy, Yes, I always went to pick her up.
How about Friday night dinner? You mentioned that your mother would light the Shabbat candle. Were there special dishes that you did on Friday?
Yeah, she always made the chicken soup for Friday night, like the traditional chicken soup, gefilte fish, and all that, that went with it.
And did she work on Saturday? Would she cook on Saturday? Would she do something on Saturday? Was
She tried really not to, but she did. Let's say if she had to go somewhere, she went. If she had to go shopping, she went, But that's about all. Like, it wasn't, I would not consider my home an observant house at all.
How about kashrut? Kashrut.
I know that in the beginning, like when we came here, she only used kosher meat, and she went down to a racial market, bought a live chicken, went down, have it slaughtered, plucked it herself and all that. And with time, it was too hard for her already, especially that she was working. So she turned to non-kosher.
How about separating milk and meat? Would she keep that?
We did not have two sets of dishes. There was only one set of dishes, but we never mixed. Let's say I never had, until today, I would never had a glass of milk after eating meat. It just doesn't fit right in my mouth. And I never gave that to my children, and neither did my mother. Like, we never ate a piece of bread with butter and have a piece of salami with it. Like, we never did that.
But if you ate salami when you were growing up, would it be kosher salami?
Sometimes kosher, sometimes not kosher. It depends which one tasted better.
But would you buy pork salami or
Pork,
only
no,
beef?
pork did not come into the house. That's the only cut of meat that did not come into the house. And up until today, I will not use it either, and neither will my son.
How about a different set of dishes for Pesach?
No, we didn't have.
And did you eat matzah? Or
We used matzah. We didn't eat chametz. She didn't bring it. Well, let's put it this way. It wasn't exactly kosher, but bread did not come into the house.
But she wouldn't do, would she do the, the ceremony?
No, we did not make a seder. No.
And she didn't do the chometz, get the chometz out of the house with the candle and all that?
No.
Okay. What did your father do for a living back in
He
Poland?
was a shoemaker.
Shoemaker. And where did he work?
He worked for himself. Then he also worked in a factory, like here in Montreal. But going back to the shtetl, he worked for himself. He made shoes for the stores.
Where did he have his workshop?
In the kitchen. In the kitchen.
Do you remember him making shoes? Do you have any memories?
Yeah, because I remember that because I used to enjoy sitting near him and listening him singing, because he was always singing. He was always singing the Jewish songs.
Your mother, she was a seamstress. Where did she work?
Oh, she worked in a factory.
That's in Montreal.
But at home she also worked for herself. She had customers, like clients coming in and all that, and she was making dresses for them.
And where was her workstation in the home, in the shtetl?
The same in the kitchen, because we only had 2 rooms. We had a bedroom and a kitchen.
So describe, I was going to ask you, but we can go there now, if you could describe your house in the shtetl, your home.
Oh yeah, because I went back, so I remember it. Well, we had 1 bedroom, as I said, 1 bedroom and 1 kitchen, and that was about all. We didn't have a bathroom in the house. We had to go down to the courtyard, which was for everybody, whoever lived there. That was the normal life in a shtetl in Poland at the time.
How about running water in the apartment?
We did not have running water. We had a well.
Was that a well for the whole house or just your own
No,
well?
it was just for the people that lived in that courtyard.
So describe this house. Was it a 1-story house, 2-story house? How many apartments? How do I imagine?
Downstairs were 2 stores. 1 store was selling fabrics, and 1 store was selling sweets. That was candies and ice cream and all that stuff. And on top of that, of these 2 stores were 2 apartments. 1 apartment was the neighbor, and 1 apartment that we lived in.
Who was your neighbor?
Oh, I don't remember quite. It was also a Jewish person, with a beard. I don't remember quite well the name or anything at all.
And the 2 store owners, were they also Jewish?
Yes. They were also Jewish.
What kind of an area was this where you lived in the shtetl?
What kind of
What kind of an area was this? A Jewish area, a mixed area?
No, when we lived, okay, we lived on the main street, which was called Zamoyska ulica, and it was a Jewish area. And we only moved in there in 1938, because before that we lived in a non-Jewish area right across from a church.
Do you have any memories of that previous apartment, or you were
No.
too young? No. And do you know why you moved?
Yes, I know because my mother told me. Because what happened, like I didn't know any Jewish at the time, and I was about 4 years old, and I was only playing with Gentile little girls, and when people came in to my mother and father, we used to call them Perchevegit. That means dirty Jew. And I was also calling them dirty Jew. So they came in and they didn't know who I was. And they came into my mother, to my parents, and they said, oh, all the little girls over there are calling us dirty Jew. My mother didn't want to say that I am one of them. And then they decided time to move.
What language did your parents speak between
Pardon?
What language did your parents speak between each other?
At home?
Yeah.
Well, we spoke Yiddish at home. But I didn't know any Yiddish because I learned more Polish from the other girls. But I understood. So they spoke to me in Yiddish and I answered them in Polish, talking my parents.
Which they understood, because they both spoke
And
Polish.
the others were Gentiles. They were
Yeah, but
Polish.
your parents understood your Polish, so they also spoke
Oh
Polish.
yeah, they also spoke Polish, yes, of course. They were born there.
Did you have any siblings?
Yes, I had a sister,
Who was named?
Rivka,
After,
after my father's mother.
when was she born? What year?
She was born in 1937. She was about 2 years old when she passed away.
Well,
I don't remember exactly the date.
No, that's okay. We'll come to that. Going back to the shtetl, because you do have some memories. So, running water was not in the houses. You told me something about the Wasserträger.
Oh yeah. Before we moved in where we lived on the last, there was like a big. It wasn't a well, but we used to call it a brenne. Well, you go and pump water like that, and he was bringing water to everybody. That's what he did for a living. Did you see the fiddler on the roof?
Long time ago.
Yeah, well, that man that was carrying the water, you know, like he had an apparatus on his back and 2 pails of water. That's exactly what it was in the shtetl. And he's called in Yiddish a Wasserträger, a water carrier, if you want to translate it into English.
How about electricity in the shtetl?
There was no electricity.
So what did
There
you...
was electricity, but not really in the houses. We had a kerosene lamp that you could make it dimmer and you could make it brighter, you know, and you just carried it from one room to the other. But when I was back in 2006, they had electricity already everywhere.
How about the roads? Were they dirt roads? Was there some kind of asphalt?
Cobblestone. And there was sidewalks.
Sidewalks with...
Yes, smooth sidewalks, yes.
I wanted to say it quickly. Yes. In your house, you mentioned you had a kitchen and a bedroom. What kind of stove did you have in the kitchen?
A wood stove.
And that was used for cooking,
That was for cooking and for heating.
for heating. Was there any heating in the bedroom?
Well, we kept the door open, so some heat went in, but that's just about all.
What kind of furniture did you have?
What kind of a?
Furniture in the house.
Well, 2 beds, because the husband and the wife don't sleep together in the same bed. So it was 2 beds. I remember that one. I slept with my mother. A table and chairs, nothing. Oh yeah, and we had what we call a shafe, which is an armoire. And that's about all. That's what I remember seeing.
And in the kitchen?
A table and chairs. And because then there was my mother's sewing machine, and it was my father's table, atelier, whatever you want to call it, you know.
The 2 beds that your parents slept in, were they next to each other, or was
No.
there something between them?
There was an armoire in between them.
Interesting. It's interesting because you say that your parents were not religious, yet that's a very religious.
Yeah,
like,
that's
religious
right.
Jews sleep that way, so it comes still from their background.
That's right. Well, my grandparents were religious. You know.
On your mother's side as well.
Yes, oh yes, definitely.
Also Hasidic, like your father's father.
My father's brothers, some of them were religious, and some of them were not.
No, the grandparents on your mother's side were like Hasidic, like the grandparents on your father's side.
Yes, they were both Hasidic. Yes.
Do you know what Hasidic Rebbe or court was in your
I
town?
don't know.
You don't.
No, I don't know that. Because they say they died before even I was, you know, like I was named after my grandmother, so I really did not know her. And my mother was 8 years old when her father died, so I really don't know much about it.
Going back to your household, you obviously didn't have a fridge. How did you keep food fresh?
Well, you see, in Europe, and I would say even until today, okay, maybe I'm exaggerating because they have Frigidaires now, but because I went to Europe quite often, whatever you need, you just go out and buy in the morning. There's no such a thing as buying one day there's not such a thing as buying for tomorrow. If you need milk, you'll buy a liter or you buy a half a liter. If you need meat, you'll just buy a little piece of meat or whatever you need, and you cook it and you eat it, and next day it's the same thing, and next day is the same thing.
Where did your mother do the shopping? Do you remember?
No.
You never went with her?
No, I don't remember going with her. I don't remember I don't remember really cooking her, you know. I just remember eating, that's about all. No, I don't remember.
Do you remember any friends of your parents from the shtetl who they were friendly with?
In the shtetl itself, no. But I remember them because they were all here in Montreal. Not all of the ones that remained alive, quite a few of them. So I knew who they were, but not from the shtetl itself, no.
And did your mother or your parents ever kind of talk to you about how close they were with their brothers and sisters, whether it was a family, you know, whether that was the social circle that they would hang out with their own family, or whether it was more friends?
No, well, the point was this, like my father's, like, there were, like, as I say, 7 brothers, so 2 of them that were gone, so there were still 5 left before the war. Some of them were religious and some of them were not, so of course they were more friendlier with the non-religious because my father was not religious than the others, but nevertheless they were still brothers. The same thing goes with my mother. She was more friendlier with one sister, which is Bella, and her brother Shia, than with her sister Perla, because Perla, she was religious. She married religious, and she was religious, so they were a little bit further apart.
Do you have any memories of these uncles and aunts coming to your house or you going to them? You were 5 years old when you left.
I remember one brother mainly because in 1939 we went to hide from the bombs in his yard because he had an orchid. And my father said, we'll hide under a tree so the Germans will not see us and we will not bombard. And this is how I remember him. From my mother's side, I remember her brother and the sister Bella Baile, because we were very close. So I remember those 2. I don't remember much the other one. She was religious and she lived already a little bit further away.
Did they have children that you would play with?
Perl had children, which I don't remember them. Again, as I say, they were religious. Bella and Shia were not married yet.
Mm-hmm. When did the war start for you in your shtetl?
That was in September, September 1st, 1939.
But for you, they didn't arrive in the shtetl, the Germans in...
No, but nevertheless, they still bombarded, okay? And I was scared, and I was hiding under the table. for the noises. So it started about, Poland is not very big, you know. I don't remember people discussing the war, let's put it this way, so I really don't know what people were saying or whatever, but the noise of the bombs and all that was scaring me.
And then what happened? So they bombarded the city.
No, what happened when they started bombarding the city, that was really something. My father had relatives in another city, a nearby city, which is called Yusufov. You're probably going to find it. And he said, well, let's go there. And it's in the mountains. And we went there, and it was relatively quiet until, of course, they started bombarding. And it was the worst place to be in, because on one side was the Polish, on the other side, on the one mountain was the Polish, the other mountain was the Germans, and we were in the alley, right trapped. A lot of people died then from the bombs. You know.
So did you go back to your own shtetl?
And after that, we walked back.
You were 5 years old.
Yeah. That's it. Germans didn't keep us. We walked back to the shtetl.
How long did that take you?
I cannot answer you that, but one thing I do remember, it was at night, and it was very lit up. Very, very lit up. A lot of my father was carrying me, and my mother was carrying my sister, and I was thirsty. And it must have rained before, and it was a lot of mud. So and the Germans had horses. And my father he bent down, and with his hand, he sort of like took away the dirt, and then he picked up a little water like that, and he gave me to drink. I still see it in front of my eyes. And then we arrived back to Szczebrzeszyn, and it was already occupied by the Germans.
What memories do you have of this German occupation?
Not much, really. I learned afterwards, but not that they were raping women. Girls, mainly girls. And I heard that from my mother saying it, okay? And then, of course, the parents went to the rabbi and all that, and the rabbi forgave everybody and whatever there. But me personally, I don't remember much.
Were you allowed to go out, play outside? Were you allowed to go out and play outside like
no,
before?
No, my mother didn't let me go out.
And did you meet any German soldiers? You mentioned something.
Yeah, I saw German soldiers. Yeah, I saw German soldiers because we had to go down buy something or whatever, and there was nothing much left in the stores, you know. So she bought whatever there was. But I cannot really say that I had a lot of experience being with the Germans. No, I did not.
And then, well, how long did they stay?
2 weeks.
And then what happened?
Then the Russians came. I don't remember much then either. You know. No, but all I remember is that the Jewish people rejoiced when the Russians came. Yeah.
Do you know why?
Well, I just know why, because what I heard, but not from my own experience.
What
because most of the Jewish people were left, were communists, and they rejoiced, you know, that the Germans are gone and the Russians are in. But on the contrary, the Polish people, they were pretty sad, you know, and they were afraid. Okay.
Your own father, what did he say when the Russians came in?
Pardon?
Your father, what did he say?
Well, my father he joined the Russians, and I remember him even carrying a rifle. For what reason, I don't know.
And how long did the Russians stay?
Also about 2 weeks.
And what happened when they left or when they were leaving?
The Germans came back.
But what happened to your family?
Oh, to my family, what happened then is the Russians put up trains, and they said that whoever wants to join us to Russia could join us to Russia. Now, since my father was left, he was scared, you know, and he figured, well, he says, the whole thing is going to last a few weeks. And he told my mother that he's going to go with the Russians and we're going to stay behind with 2 children. Where you going? And when he went to the train station, that's my parents, when he went to the train station by himself, he saw other families that took the whole families. So he told the conductor, wait, don't leave. I'll go bring my family. And he came back and he took us with him.
What did you take with you? Did you, like you personally, a little
What
girl?
we took with us, but we call in Yiddish a nibbebet. You don't know what it is, okay? It's a comforter, and you have the plume, the feathers inside. And the reason why he took that is to keep me and my sister warm. That's all what he took with us.
Did you have any toys you would take with you, like a doll or something?
Absolutely nothing else. He just took my mother and me and my sister, and we left. Locked the door, and left. And he never opened it again.
Did you take any clothes with you?
Absolutely nothing. Just that to keep us warm.
What do you remember of going from your home to the train station and the train journey? What are your memories of that?
Nothing much. My mother carried my sister, my father carried me, and they carried, that ibebet, what they call, and that's it. All I remember is it was raining. The reason why I know it was raining is because the wagons were like half open, like there was no roof, and we were sleeping, of course, on the ground, and we were covered with that comforter, and I had drops on my face coming down from the rain. That I remember that I didn't like, and I was always...
So these were wagons for
Animals.
Animals. Okay. How many people were in those wagons?
Oh, they were big. It was packed. Because the Russians said, whoever wants to come with us. No papers, nothing needed. Just get on the trains.
But you say packed, but not packed like wagons that went, cattle cars that went to concentration camps. You had enough space to lie down.
Oh, yeah, that's right. No, I wouldn't compare it at all.
Any families you knew in that wagon that you were in?
My mother's brother came with us. He came with us. The rest, I don't know who they were or anything at all. Remember, I was only also 5 years old.
I know, but you still have some memories. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I remember, because my nature is I observe a lot.
How about the train station when you were getting on? What are your memories of that?
There wasn't much of a train station in Szczecin. There was no station. There was just railroad tracks, and from the platform you went straight up to the train. I mean, there was no... Even now that I went back in 2006, there's no station.
How about soldiers? Russian soldiers?
Russian soldiers, helped us and all that. They were very nice, matter of fact.
In what language did they communicate with people?
I don't know. I don't know what language my father didn't speak Russian at the time, so I really don't know. Like, that's a good question. I haven't got no clue how they communicated.
Do you remember what time of day it was when you went to the station?
It was at night.
Train? At night.
Yeah, it was at night. I remember my mother saying that when my father left, she remained sitting on the bed with my sister in her arms and me sitting near her. Just like, and now what?
And then, so you get into wagon, train is going, it's raining, and you arrive where? Where did you go? Where did you take you?
How do you call that city? I told you that before.
Wait, Vladimir
Volynsk. We arrived there. There was nowhere to go except to the synagogues, and it was packed. So you just slept on the benches and on the floor, and this one I remember. Oh my God, was it packed!
Was everybody in that wagon that you went in, were they all Jews?
The majority that I could tell, like, you know, I didn't ask them, are you Jewish, are you not Jewish? The majority that I could tell were Jews that did not want to stay behind with the Germans. And the majority were, now that I realize it, the majority were working Jews. Like, I wouldn't call them exactly poor, or let's say poor, or middle class, you know, but Jews that had anything like a home, a house, you know what I mean, like they belonged, a little bit wealthier Jews or rich Jews did not leave.
How do you know that? Hindsight?
This one I know a lot from reading, and I know that a lot what my parents were talking and all that.
When you arrived in Volodymyr Volynski, did that just take the night to arrive there, or did you travel several days? How far was it?
I don't remember. It's not far because it was just there's a river between like Ukraine and Poland, which is called, I believe, the Buk River. It was just crossing a river. It wasn't really it wasn't. In Europe there's no distances like we have here in Canada or in the United States. Like going to one city to the other takes hours. You could go through Poland from one end to the other in one day, you know. So it was, I don't remember exactly how long it took, but I know it didn't take long.
Any memories of arriving in the city, arriving at the station,
No,
getting out?
No, I don't remember that, but I remember sleeping on the bench in the synagogue. And covered with that comforter.
What did you eat? Where did you get food from?
I don't know. Whatever we had.
Do you remember going hungry?
No. I must say no.
And did anybody cook anywhere? I mean, you can't cook in a synagogue.
At that time, I don't remember cooking because there was nowhere to cook. So I guess they just went out and bought something or whatever. I really cannot answer that.
And what did you and your sister do all day?
We weren't too, but my sister died almost right away.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Of? What did she die
Well, she
of?
had the measles, and after that, she had complications and all that, and she died almost immediately. We weren't too long under these conditions, and then my father decided we're going to go deeper into Russia, and this is how we went to Maxim Gorky.
When we were discussing, you know, the dates, basically we said that you left in October 1939, because that's when the Russians left, and you left Volodymyr Volynski in the spring of 1940. That's what you and I kind of established. So you stayed there a few months, I think. Yeah,
that's right. As I say, it wasn't long, because there's nowhere to live. There was nothing to rent, and I know that from that synagogue, we left to Maxim Gorky. How long exactly we stayed like that? It wasn't too long at all.
But you, like, the whole time you were sleeping in that synagogue?
In that synagogue, yes. We did not have an apartment at all. All that time we were in that synagogue. And this is why I said we have to go through the dates, because when I was thinking about it, you know. Yeah.
Did you come into contact with any outsiders, like Russian people living in the town?
Okay, I just want to go back a little bit, okay?
Go ahead.
My mother's brother came with us, and then he left back to the shtetl.
How come?
Because he did not like the conditions, and he was a fragile man. So he went back to the shtetl. So it was relatively easy to go back and forth between the Ukraine, because that time it was Russia, but it's the Ukraine. Very easy to go back and forth from Poland to the shtetl, and from the shtetl to Vladimir Volynsk, which was the closest city to the border.
But once he went back, he never came back again.
No.
So the last time you heard about...
That was the last thing my mother ever saw her brother.
So going back to my question, did you have any contact with Russian people, not Jews or even Jews or non-Jews in the town in Volensky?
No, but during the time that we were in the synagogue, no, not at all, not at all, not at all.
The local community, any help from the local community, local Jews?
Not to my knowledge. I personally, like if I could give you my opinion, I don't think so.
And so you went to Gorky. Now I looked up Gorky, and Gorky today is Nizhny Novgorod, or there is also Veliki Novgorod. Do you know which one it would be? And they're really pretty far, both of them.
I didn't understand part.
So Gorky, it's not a name today. Today it's called Nizhny Novgorod.
I don't know what it's called today.
And I also found a Veliki Novgorod, and both of them are 15 to 1800 kilometers from Ukraine. So could it be that you traveled that far into Russia?
Yes, we traveled quite. Actually, I don't think it's really not that far from Moscow. Because I looked up, like I was always interested in that, so I always, I didn't know it changed names. So we called it Maxim Gorky, actually. And I know it was not too far from Moscow, because when we went back, we stopped in Moscow. That's another story, that I remember.
You have to tell me that when we get there. When you went back from where?
From Maxim Gorky, we went back to the Ukraine with the intention of going back to Germany, not to Germany, to Poland.
And why did you stop in Moscow? What's the story there?
Well, the story is there. We had to stop in Moscow. So a Jewish family took a reason for some papers that we needed or something. I don't know exactly. And the Jewish family took us in for a couple of days. And the daughter of so there was a couple, and they lived with the mother. So the mother and they were Jewish, but apparently her son-in-law wasn't, and he was a big lieutenant or something, because he was in the uniform and everything. And she was lighting Friday night the Shabbos candles, and she had to close all the shutters and everything, so nobody would see it outside that she's lighting the candles, because the religion was forbidden. And they lived in Moscow. So I was in Moscow, and I traveled the Moscow subway, the most gorgeous subway you have ever seen. And I still remember touching the seats, because they were red velvet.
Now, going back to Gorky, what do you remember of this long train journey from?
What I remember about Gorky is we had one room, very nice room, furnished, very, very nice. And again, there was curtains, white curtains, and they were red drapes, and I also with velvet. There's a lot of velvet in Russia for whatever reason, I don't know, and red velvet. I was always touching the texture that I like. And my mother gave me into a diet dom. A diet dom in Russian means a kindergarten. But there you sleep also. They not only thing. So I was there, and I was crying from the morning till night, and I didn't eat. So my mother was there about a week or so. So my mother was called, or my parents were called, and said they should take me out because I don't eat and I'll die there. So at that time, I was like 6 years old, something. So she took me home into that room, and I looked out the window, and I was alone a whole day. Days and days and days, because my mother and father went to work, and at that age, I was alone a whole day home, looking out the window and touching the drapes.
What did you do the whole day?
Looking out the window.
The whole day you were sitting on the window?
Looking out the window, except when I got up and I wanted something to eat, she left me food, or I had to go to the washroom, I went to the hallway, and looking out the window. I didn't know how to read, I didn't know how to write, I didn't know absolutely nothing. So just looking out the window and playing with the velvet drapes.
You said you had one room, so was it an apartment where families had a room?
No, 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 I don't remember that. There was a hallway, so there must have been some other rooms. But people didn't live the way we live here. We didn't have a bathroom in the house. We didn't have a kitchen in the house. We had a room. And everything was done in that particular room.
Where did you go for bathroom or just to wash yourself?
There was a basin with a pail and a water. And if you want to wash yourself, that's how you wash yourself. You want to wash your hair, you wash it in the basin.
And where was the bathroom to go
in
to?
the hallway. There was one bathroom for whoever lived there.
How many floors were?
I don't remember. I know we were downstairs. This I know. If there's anyone, I don't remember.
And where did your mother prepare the food? Did you have some kind of a
She
stove?
bought the food in the store.
But did she prepare? Did she cook?
Yeah, she cooked.
Was there a stove in the
There was
room?
a little stove, yes.
In the room.
Yeah, all that in one room.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to believe, eh?
No, I'm not even surprised, and that's why I was
No, like
asking.
as I say, now that I think about it, you know what I mean? It's just, I don't often think about the past.
But I know from Hungary, and it was the same in the Soviet Union, and that's why I asked if there were others in the apartment, that there were many communal apartments that each family had one room, and then they shared the kitchen, and which led to a lot of problems, and the bathroom. That's why I asked if you remember any other families, but you don't.
No, one room we had, that's it.
Where did your parents work? What did they do?
Well, my father was a shoemaker, my mother was sewing, so they must have worked somewhere. I don't know exactly. I don't know what they did. I presume that that's what they did, you know. But I never. They just went to work. They had to go to work. They went to work. Everybody's working in Russia. Everybody's working.
Going back to when you lost your sister, what are your memories of this loss personally or through your parents?
I didn't quite understand what happened. It's just that I know that they left when they went to bury her, and I cried. I did not cry because she died, because I didn't understand what it means even. I just cried because they didn't want to take me with them. That's about all that I know, and then I just didn't see her, and I don't remember saying anything. I don't remember asking questions. I don't remember what.
Do you remember your parents being sad or emotional?
Well, yeah, of course.
No, but as a kid, maybe you don't
Yeah,
understand
I
why, but
remember that, yes, yes. And then right after that, after she died, we left. Because it wasn't, the conditions were not to stay there and live in the synagogues. And
Did she die in the synagogue?
Yeah, no, she died in the hospital.
She was taken to hospital.
Yeah, she died, yeah, they took her to the hospital when she was sick, and she died in the hospital. I mean, what conditions the hospitals were, I don't know. I'm sure they weren't in the perfect conditions or had the right medication.
I asked you, I think you didn't hear, when you went to Gorky, and I asked you what memories you have of this whole train ride from
Shebzhezhin?
from Volinsky to Gorky, because it's a long train ride. You mentioned that. What are your memories of this train ride?
From Vladimir Volinsky to Gorky. Yes, it is a long train ride. I don't really quite remember. All I know, it was a train going and stopping and waiting days and going again, and I don't quite remember much that ride there.
But do you remember, for example, if you were in like normal passenger cars or?
Yes, normal passenger cars, yes. Yes.
Anybody going with you that you got to know in
No.
Volins? No. And then while you were living in Gorky, which again was not too long, I think.
No, that was not too long at all, because my parents decided that they're going to go back. I don't know, they heard rumors or something that it's not really that bad with the Germans. People are working, people are eating, you know what I mean? They're not harassing anybody. And my parents decided they'll go back to Poland. So the only way to go back to Poland is to faire marche arrière, going back to Ukraine. Well, but let's call it Ukraine because it actually was Russia at the time. And we'll see from there and try to go back to the shtetl.
Where did you stay in Ukraine on the way back? You went back to Volynsk?
We went back, I don't remember to what city, but we went back closer to the border with Poland, let's call it this way, because it did belong to Russia. But
And how long did you stay in that city? You don't remember?
we didn't stay long because when we were arrested, it was summer of that same year.
So tell me about that, the circumstances of the arrest.
Well, what happened was, what I remember exactly was, as I said to you, I don't know how my father was making the arrangements, but we had to go through Moscow. So we went into Moscow and we stayed a couple of days with this family, or maybe more than a couple of days. I don't know for what the reason, but it was, as I say, a Jewish family. And then we went back. I don't think we went back to Vladimir Volynsk. I don't know if we went back there, because I remember where we lived when we came back to, let's call it Ukraine, so it's easier to understand. We lived in a house also with one room. All we had was a cot, and at the end of the room was a pile of wood, like, chopped up wood. I don't know why. And across the hall was a cow, a stable of a cow. So I just see it in front of my eyes. And and it was summer already, and it was warm already. And I don't know what city it was exactly. And when we came, so then what happened was, so we went there, we came there, and we lived. So my mother didn't work. My father went to work, and then the rumors were going around that to register to go back to Germany, and that's exactly why my father decided to go back. So they stayed the whole night. They took shifts, my mother and father, and then when they came to arrest us, my father had to go to the washroom. Excuse me, he had to pee. And there were two Russians that came to arrest us, 2 soldiers. And they wouldn't let him go out. They said to him, make right there in the wood. So he turned around.
When you said that your father and mother took turns
to stay in line.
Where was it? Some kind of an office?
In front of an office, I guess, to register, to go back. And like they were talking, they asked us the name, and they asked the family name, and where do you live, and how many people. No, they knew exactly where to go and how many people to expect and all that. I'm talking the Russians.
Yeah. Can you describe that night when they came to arrest you and your family?
Pardon?
Can you describe the night when they came to arrest you?
They just knocked on the door, and the landlady lived also in the same complex, let's put it this way, and say another room in the hallway, and they just came, and they just says, get dressed, you're coming with us.
What did you feel? What did you think?
I didn't feel nothing.
6-year-old
I didn't know absolutely nothing. We just went, and of course that comforter came with us. That one was traveling. We didn't take nothing. We didn't have anything, and we just left with him.
Where did you go?
To the train.
Train station?
Train station.
Describe the train station. Who were there? What happened there?
Train station, they put us in the wagons, and they locked the doors. These were closed wagons. And the wagon was like a tall wagon, and it had a platform in the middle. So either you're all the way on top, or you're in the middle, or you're all the way on the floor. Like, it was attached. 3 stories.
Like bunks? You're talking about something going around the walls?
There was nothing around the walls.
So in the middle of
I wouldn't, like if you would take a crate, like a big wagon, and you had like a floor. So the big wagon was divided in 3 sections. Let's put it this way.
How did you go between the sections?
When men cramped up, like you put your foot on one and go on the other, like I don't know, they threw me up.
Where were you, on which level?
It depends where we went. That these were the Russian trains. Some of them was the middle level. The advantage of the high level is you had a little window. Well, in the middle level, you didn't have nothing.
What else was in the wagon?
Well, the wagon was divided, like as I say, on one side, you had those 3 sections, the other one. In the middle, you had a stove, and you had a pail. That was it.
When you got to the station, when you were put in the train, what happened at the station? Who else was there?
There were so many people you cannot imagine. Because we weren't the only ones that wanted to go back. And we were so many people. So many people. I was crowded. There was the Russian watching us. We shouldn't have run away. There was no dogs. There was no dogs. They were watching us. We shouldn't have run away. When we held on to each other, we shouldn't get separated, you know what I mean? And we just went, and then they just closed the doors.
Who were the other people in your wagon?
Pardon?
Who were the other people in your wagon?
Jewish people.
All Jews?
Oh yeah, I would say that. All Jewish people that wanted to go back to Poland, wanted to go back to Poland, wanted to go back home.
So you are in the wagon, they close the door, lock the door, and then what happens?
We're sitting there till the train starts moving.
Mm-hmm. And then?
And the train moved to Siberia.
Yeah, but there was a long journey. Tell me a little bit about this journey. Because you did tell me a few things about the journey.
After that, you got to know each other. And you started talking, where are you from? And every time the train started, they didn't give us food or anything. No, absolutely nothing. The train stopped, the men ran down from the train, tried to get some hot water, tried to buy some food on the stations. That's a good question. I don't know where we took money. I don't know where we got the money, because all that had to be paid for. And they didn't give us no money, so I don't know where my parents got money. I cannot answer you that. And then they came back up on the train, and we ate whatever was available at the time. And then sometimes the trains just stayed weeks on a platform and somewhere in a corner because they needed the rails for the soldiers. And this is how we finally got to Siberia. I know we were not, now I was thinking, we were not far away from Novosibirsk. Mm-hmm. You heard about that city?
Yes.
That's right. And then we went into barracks, and...
Don't run ahead, because you did tell me a few other things about this train journey. One thing I wanted to ask... I will, yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you, what kind of food do you remember that you guys ate?
Oh, the most of it was black bread. A piece of cheese, a piece of salami. There definitely was no cooked food. And hot water. That was the main thing, is to get hot water. Because we didn't have no dishes. So the stove was used to mind you, it wasn't, we didn't need a stove then, because when we were arrested, it was in the spring or early summer or something like that. Because when we came back from Gorky, it was winter or fall.
And you stayed in that somewhere, wherever you stayed in Ukraine, until the spring, summer?
No, we stayed. Okay, just a second. Don't forget, when we went to Gorky, okay, was the beginning of winter.
Okay, and we're talking about winter 1940.
Correct.
And then when you came back to Ukraine, it was a spring.
It was already spring and a little bit of summer, yes. This is when we got arrested.
Okay. And then you were traveling.
We lived a few months until, as I say, till the spring.
Yeah. What did you children do during this long train ride?
We were playing. Whatever we find what to do, we were playing. We didn't suffer. We really, we didn't understand. We didn't understand what's going on. And we didn't know of any better. So I wouldn't say that we suffered. We really did not suffer. Parents protected us all the way. And we got together and we played hide and go seek, climbed between the 3 floors and all that. And we did not suffer.
Did you make any friends in the train?
No. I really, during those 6 years, or 5 years, whatever the war was, I did not have per se friends. Because every time we were in another place, how could you make friends?
How about guards? Was this train guarded by Russian soldiers?
Yes, it was.
Inside your wagon?
Especially when it stopped, yes. But they let us down. So the women did not, the women did not go down from the train to go shopping. It's the men that went. So the Russians were sure that automatically the men will come back to the women. But there still was police on the stations, yes.
But the women could get down at the station?
Yeah, if they wanted to go down, they went down, yes.
How did you clean yourself? We're talking about a journey of several weeks.
You didn't. There was a little bit of water, and you just washed your hands, and sometimes you washed your face, and sometimes you didn't. I mean, we weren't the cleanest people available. Let me tell you something, it was a lot of lice.
Already in the train?
Oh my goodness. Already in the train. We didn't have clothes to really change all that. We weren't the cleanest people. I mean, sanitary, that...
How did you deal with the lice?
We killed them. Like this. Got the louse and we just went like that, and then we wiped it in our clothes. A lot of lice, and they were big. Even in the hospitals there were lice. And I'm a witness to that.
Where were you in hospital?
In Jambu.
Oh.
We'll get there.
Any illnesses? Was anybody ill in the train, in that long train journey? Any illnesses? Lice, scary illnesses? Was there anybody sick in the train?
Not that I recall of. Because we weren't, let's put it this way, we weren't yet undernourished, don't forget.
You didn't go hungry? You don't remember going hungry in the train?
No. Because we just ate whatever my father brought up. In my family, it's my father mainly that went down the train to shop.
Mm-hmm. So you arrive in Siberia, near Novosibirsk.
Near Novosibirsk.
Yeah, what kind of a camp was there?
All I could remember is barracks. I remember the woods. There was tall trees, white trees. Like the trees were very, very tall, very skinny, and they were like the birch around it was white. I don't know how you call these trees. Nothing around.
Any fence around the camp?
No.
Any guards?
No. It wasn't really I cannot say it was a camp. I wouldn't call it a camp. There was no Russians. It was just barracks. That's it. And each barrack had a few rooms, and in each room, a few families lived.
How many barracks are we talking about?
How many families?
How many barracks do you remember
I don't remember how many. I just remember the barrack that I lived in and one nearby. But if there are any further, like more, I don't remember that.
Could you describe the barrack you lived in?
Yeah, well, what happened was we had a few rooms in one barrack, and it was like the toilet, you know, and the stove was in the room, and there were a few families living in one room. So each one had a corner or whatever, and we were lucky because it was cold. It was winter already. And I remember we had our cot right near the stove. So all we had was that cot, that the three of us slept together. And that's about all. And we kids were playing. Yeah, there was a table and a couple of chairs, 2 or 3 chairs, I don't remember how many. And we kids, there was kids, and we were playing. And my parents made us a set of cards from cardboard and wrote down what it is. And we were playing war, and this is how the days went by.
You still had the comforter.
Pardon?
You still had the comforter that your father
We
brought.
still had that. I don't know what happened to it at the end, to be honest with you, but we still had that comforter. Yes.
Who were the other family in your room?
From other cities. One person was very religious with a beard. I remember that him. I remembered him, you know, because it was strange to me with somebody with a beard, you know, and all that. I don't know from where. From which city, or they were from Poland. The same circumstances as ours, so no difference.
What was the common language of the
Yiddish.
barrack? Yiddish. And do you remember? I'm just like picturing like a room with several families, no privacy. How did people change? Like how did people?
I don't remember.
You don't remember.
All I know is if we have to go to the washroom, we went to the woods.
So there was no bathroom inside.
No
How did you do
bathroom.
it in the winter?
We go to the woods.
How about washing? Did you have any kind of basin?
Yeah,
to
a
wash
little
yourself?
basin with some water, whatever, and all that. As I say, hygiene was far from clean.
Did you have lice there as well?
Oh yeah, the minute we went out of our homes, somehow I don't know, I wouldn't say lice came with us because we didn't have lice, you know, where we lived in Poland. But, oh yeah. The 6 years of war, the 6 years of lice. I even had lice in Belgium when we first came.
How about, again, you're in the woods, there's lice. Did you get sick? Did your parents get sick in those
No,
years?
I
you were
didn't
there?
get sick. I only got sick in Jambul, I got sick.
Okay, we'll come to that.
Yeah.
Food. Where did food come from?
I don't know. Well, there wasn't much of food. There was. You see, in Russia, during Stalin's time, you were not allowed to be rich. Okay, so a lot of Russian people that were rich were sent to Novosibirsk and to other big cities around. I don't remember the name of the other big cities. So these people came, let's say like my mother made a coat for a guy there. And remember I told you the story with the chicken?
But you have to tell it again.
You know?
You have to tell it again, so we have it on
I have
camera.
to tell us again. Okay, that wasn't in Ural. That was I remember now. That was in Siberia, and they used to call them a kolkhoznik. A kolkhoznik is a person that has a farm. It's called in Russian a kolkhoznik. So he came and asked who could sew for me. I want somebody to make me a fur coat. So my mother said, I'll make you a fur coat. And he brought us the famous chicken and some bread and some whatever there, okay? And my mother told my father, go out and kill the chicken. Now, my father never killed anything before. So he took an axe, I don't know, or a knife, I don't know exactly what he took. And he went and he tied the legs from the chicken and he chopped the head off. And then he came running, pale like a schmutter, back to the house. My mother said, "Where's the chicken?" He barely was able to tell her where the chicken is. And she started yelling at him, "Get out and bring in the chicken because the dogs are going to eat up the chicken." So this is how we got food. There was also, now that I remember, there was also what they used to call a store that the Russians provided with bread and essentials. So we went to that store. If we had to pay for it or not, I don't know, because it wasn't me that was going, so I cannot answer.
But where was the store? Because I'm picturing the middle
Also
of the woods.
in a barrack, and another barrack. There was like a store, if you want to call it.
Was there any like settlement nearby that you ever went to? Or you were just in the middle of the wide woods?
Oh, in the middle of the wide woods. In the middle of the wide woods. You know, you can't escape, because the Russian will not put up a train. You cannot escape.
Train tracks went all the way to this.
I can't
this
remember
barrack?
exactly how far trains took us. I don't remember going by car or by truck, so it must have been a station there somewhere.
And the time you were there, did you see any Russian soldiers come and go?
No.
So who
You
provided
can't
the
escape
store?
either.
No, but who provided the store? Do you have any
They
idea?
were Russians, but they weren't soldiers. They were Russian people, but they weren't soldiers. I didn't see no one soldier during the time being there.
And everybody who lived in this barracks, who was in this camp or encampment, was Jewish.
Was
people.
Jewish, the same situation like ours, yeah. And the men were working in the woods. They were chopping the trees and all that, yes.
Your father as well.
My father as well, yeah.
How far did they have to go into the woods?
Oh, not far. You walked out and you turned, it's right there. We were right in the middle.
And who supervised all this chopping and sanding the woods?
I don't know.
Do you know what his working hours were? Did he, like, what time he had to leave in the morning, what time he came back from work?
Not to my knowledge, no. Not to my knowledge.
And do you know if he had to work 6 or 7 days or 5 days a week?
I don't know.
You don't know, okay.
I don't know that. I don't remember if there was days off or something. Well, for me, every day was off, so we hardly knew anything. Like everything was automatic.
What did you kids do? Always in the winter you were staying in,
Just,
playing
as I
cards.
say, we were just doing nothing.
But in the summer, when the weather was nicer, what did you do?
We went outside, we played hopscotch or whatever, nothing really what to talk about. I mean, nothing that stays in my memory that we did, except inside when it was cold, we were playing those cards. This is staying in, like, that my parents made for the children. That's all there was a lot of children. When children have children, nothing matters anymore.
What kind of clothing did you have to keep you warm?
I still had my coat. Like, I had a little fur coat. I was very well dressed before the war, very, very, very well dressed. And so I still had that little fur coat that I was wearing. I don't know what happened to it at the end. Of course, I outgrew it, you know.
Cooking, was there any cooking done?
Yes, because there was that stove, you know. A lot of potatoes. A lot of potatoes, because that's the only thing that grows there is potatoes. So we ate a lot of potatoes.
And was the cooking done communally in your room, or did every family cook for themselves?
Every family cooked for themselves.
So your mother cooked for your father and you?
Yeah, every family cooked for themselves.
Where did you eat?
I don't know where we took pots and pans. I guess they must have given to us, because we didn't take it from home. That's the last thing that you think of. They must have given it to us.
Where did you eat?
Where we ate?
Where, yeah.
But there was a table and chairs. And we were about, if I remember, there was the religious person that he had a few children. There was us, and I think there was 3 families in that room. So we just took turns.
Took turns cooking, took turns eating?
Well, we took turns cooking. We took turns, eating, and I don't remember arguing, like the parents yelling or screaming. I don't remember that at all. So I guess everybody just was in the same boat, as we say.
There was a religious man there. Your family was not too religious. What do you remember of any religious observance in that room or in that barrack?
But I remember he was davening. I guess he must have known his prayers by heart, How he observed the Yiddishkeit, I don't know. But I know that he did his prayers in the morning and at night and all that. Yeah, this I know.
How about your mother observing Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur?
Oh, there wasn't such a thing. No. There wasn't. We barely knew what day it is, never mind observing holidays. Oh, God, no, there wasn't such a thing. Not at all.
How long did you stay there? You arrived in the winter.
We didn't stay very long, because in Siberia I'm talking.
Yeah.
We did not
course.
stay very long. I cannot tell you exactly how long, but they came. I'm talking about the Russians. I mean, whoever they were, the KBG or whoever, and they took out the families that they had, like a strong man, And my father was still young and pretty strong, and they transferred us to Ural to work in the mines.
How was this transfer? How was this train journey?
By train.
Yeah, but how was this journey? Can you describe?
I don't remember exactly how long, but it was the same story. The trains just stopped and stayed on the rails for I don't know how long, and then start again. It's always the same pattern. There's no change to it at all. And then we arrived in Ural. And Ural was actually a little bit better.
How come? Or in what way?
The food, the store, it was the same thing. We still lived in the same conditions with the barrack and the stove and all that. But somehow it felt better because there was more food in the stores to buy. And it felt like something is going to happen, just that we did not know what. It was also very cold. But they paid the people that lived in that worked in the mines very well according to those days. So we were able to buy more food in the store, but because we had to pay for it. Where we got the money, I still don't know. But they paid for work, And so it was. Ural was a bit better than in Siberia. Yes.
When you say more food, does it mean more variety, or you
more variety and a little bit? Let's say, what they did is you couldn't go in and say, "Could I have a bread?" You only get so many grams per day. It was rationed.
In both places.
Yes, in both places it was rationed. So there's this bisque bread, and if it's 500 grams, well, you chop it up and you put it on a scale, and there's 500 grams. And you couldn't say, well, I want white, or I want black, or I want rye bread, or I want challah. No. There's an expression in Russia, dayut. Dayut means they give. You don't ask what. You just take.
Did you go hungry in Siberia? Do you remember being hungry because not enough food?
No. I do not remember. I remember one thing that I did in Ural. Of course, there was no butter. I took a piece of bread and I mashed potatoes, and I put on top of it, and I went out to eat it on the street. Let's call it street, whatever you want to call it, And there was other people, other children, and they ran home to the barracks, home to their parents, and said, "How come I have butter and they don't have butter?" And everybody bombarded my mother where she got the butter. My mother said, "I haven't got no butter." "Yes, your daughter was eating bread and butter. Where'd you get the butter?" Finally, we realized that it wasn't butter, it was a mashed potato.
Was there any, both in Siberia and the Urals, was there any kind of communal life, any kind of communal activities?
No. Absolutely nothing. But don't forget another thing. We didn't speak Russian yet. None of us really spoke Russian. So the main language was Yiddish.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. That with the other Jews, was there any communal activity
No,
that people would?
no.
do
They were
together?
from all over Poland. I mean, there was absolutely nothing in common. Everybody just stayed this little family. Okay, we were talking to each other. I mean, you're civil, you know what I mean? But and the children were playing. That one thing was good. There was a lot of children.
What did your parents do in their spare time? Whatever.
Well, my
spare
mother
time they
didn't do
had?
nothing except, as I said, whatever she was able to do something for the Russians. But my father was working in the mines. Like
And
in
when he wasn't-
Siberia, he was working in the woods, like chopping the trees. And in Ural, he was working in the mines.
And when he wasn't working,
Nothing.
was there anything that your little family would do together?
There was nowhere to go. There was nothing to see. Absolutely, there was nothing to read. When we didn't know what was going on in the world. I mean, you were isolated from everybody. It was, you put us in a square and we all do the same thing, nothing.
You said that the
No
setup.
social life, nothing.
You mentioned that the setup was similar in Siberia as in the Urals. Again, a barrack with rooms with families.
Yeah, the same setup, exactly, yes.
Who were the families in your room in the Urals?
I don't know. There were Jewish families. I don't know from where or anything at all. Maybe my parents knew, like, you know, they were talking, but I did not know. All I know is I was playing with the children and together, and that was it.
Can you recall any child in particular that you played a lot with?
What?
Can you recall any child in particular from either place that you still remember that you played with a lot?
No. I never saw them again. You see, you saw these people today, or you with them a few months, and after that, you just don't know where they went, and they don't know where we went, and you just don't know them at all.
In the Urals, was it the same? There was no guards,
No.
no fence.
Let's put it this way: if they were, I did not see them. We didn't see the Russians. We didn't like Russian people, yeah, but no, not at all. Well, if they wouldn't put up the trains, we wouldn't be able to leave. So there was no need to guard us.
Nobody had ever escaped, tried to walk away.
Nobody
you know
ever
of.
escapes from Siberia. If they don't want you to go, to take you out, you cannot go out. The same thing, you know, in Ural. If they don't want you to go out, you cannot go out. They're not going to put up a train. You haven't got no. Are you going to start walking?
How about the mines? Your father worked in the mines. How far were they? Where were they in comparison with your barracks?
I don't know really, but I know that he came home every day, so from work. So I don't know how really much. And walking, so it must have been not that far.
You mentioned something about potatoes, planting potatoes.
Mentioned about?
Planting potatoes in the Urals. Remember you
Oh yeah, baking potatoes. Yeah.
planting potatoes.
Yeah, we were planting, but that's the only thing that grows. So we were planting the potatoes, and then we heard that they're going to let us free. That was already when they signed the pact with Poland, you know, the Russians, okay? And we didn't know where we were going. So my mother, we recorded the potatoes, and my mother made, meals out of the potatoes, because we didn't know we were going to get food. We didn't know absolutely nothing what was going on. And my father made a crate, like a big wooden crate, and my mother made recipes from potatoes. So you had potato kugel, you had potato latkes, you had potato chun, you had potato bread, you had potato, so you had that whole crate, nothing but food out of potatoes.
All potatoes you grew.
Potatoes that we grew, yes.
Where did you have space to grow potatoes?
They gave us a piece of land. Yeah, each one of us got a little piece of land, and since that's the only thing that's growing, because as cold as it is in Siberia, as cold as it is in Ural, and that's how we grew the potatoes. So the only thing, and then they said, okay, you're going to be liberated, and you're going, and so we didn't know we were going to have food or not. So my mother made potato food.
How did they give you a choice of where to go? Because you mentioned something about...
Well, we had a choice, as I say, to go where we went, to Jambul or to Tashkent. Well, I don't know why my parents picked Jambul. I haven't got no clue. But that's the only choice we had, is to go that direction, nowhere else. And this is where the trains went.
And everybody left at the same time?
Yeah, everybody left. Oh, yeah.
Were there any people that went with you from these barracks to Jambul?
Yeah, there were some people that came, that came with us. But then again, we got lost, like there was nothing in common with people, so... And this is how we went. First, went to Alma-Ata. You heard about Alma-Ata, okay? And we were 2 weeks in Alma-Ata, sleeping literally outside. The station was so packed that when we came, I guess from previous trains, and waiting for trains, that we slept 2 weeks on the street, on the grass. And then my father got sick. Alma-Ata is known for apples. Okay? Now, we haven't had an apple since 1939. So we had so we ate apples and apples and apples. And I guess my father got sick, and he went to the hospital in Alma-Ata. And then, so I remained with my mother. And then my mother had a problem. What was the problem? The problem was, if a train comes to go further, either to Jambul or to Tashkent, and if she's going to go with me, and my father is still going to be in the hospital, how is he going to find us? It wasn't such a thing as pick up the phone and call, where are you? Or ask the Russian, where did my wife go? That doesn't exist. So where do we go? So we go and leave him in the hospital if he's not going to come out in time, or do we stay home here and continue sleeping on the street? Now that I realized that was quite a decision. Luckily, my father came out before the train came. And we were able to go, the three of us, in the same direction.
On that journey, you mentioned that your mother made all these different potato dishes because she wasn't sure you're going to get food. Did you get food on the train journey?
Yes, we did. Well, we ate up the potatoes recipes, the potato food also, but we did get food, yes. Not that we get food, we were able to get off the train and buy food.
What kind of train journey was this compared to the other journey?
The same trains.
With the three?
Yes, the same trains.
Were you also locked up or no?
Pardon?
Were you locked into in the wagons?
No, we were more freer, yeah. Once we out, well, don't forget, before we were prisoners.
Well, that's what I'm asking, exactly.
No, we were free. We were free, yes. Once they let us out of Ural, or some people stayed in Siberia. Not everybody was able to go to Ural. It was only the ones that is strong men. They picked us, No, once they liberated us, we were free to go wherever we want, but away from the war, like not closer, away more east.
And was this the same kind of journey where the train would be put aside and you had to wait? So it's always the same.
That's right. Like we're saying, well, they need the rails for trucks, for the trains, for the army to go to the front. That's what the saying was. I mean, was it so or not?
So since you said that you gathered your potatoes, that's in the fall when you dig up the potatoes. I imagine you were going there in the fall of 1942.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then, so your father comes out of the hospital, you get in the train, and where do you go?
We went to Jambul.
Mm-hmm. And what happened there? Tell me about how you settled in Jambul.
Okay, so that was actually, Jambul was actually our last destination in Russia. The first, this one I remember quite, don't forget I was also older, okay? We had one room that was made out of clay, literally clay. That's the only place where we came in contact with the Muslim religion. The people there were Muslims. Okay? So we had one room, and of course in the winter it was raining in and all that. It's there that we stayed about, 3-4 years.
3.5, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So we lived there. And what happened, and then my father was, as I say, my father is a shoemaker. So he made some shoes or repaired shoes, whatever. My mother did some sewing a little bit. There was plenty food. There was really plenty food. The landlady where we lived by, she had a big yard that she cultivated things. There was plenty, and with milk. There was no shortage of food. That's when we really started to breed a little bit. Then after that, he found a job in a school. There were 2 schools in Jambul. School number 39 and school number 36. School number 39 was an elementary school. This is where I started to go to school. Because up until then, I did not go to school. So I went to Russian school, to the first grade of Russian school then. So then my father got a job in school 36. School 36 was a high school, and it was also what they call an internat. An internat meant that kids came from small cities, and they slept there, and they ate there, and so the shoes had to be fixed. So he got a job there, and they let us move in there. So there was this big room with a big table where my father worked, near the window. In the back of the room was where we had a bed, a small bed, and a kitchen, like a stove, and a table. Now, a small bed for 3 people, it's quite small. So when my father finished work, he cleaned up the work table, and that's where my parents slept. That was the only time where I didn't sleep with my parents. And it was pretty good. It was pretty good. And then he made friends with a Russian woman that provided food for that internat. So before she gave the food to the internat, she stopped by us and gave us food. So my father paid her for it, and the rest she brought there. And we lived there quite a while in that school till things changed, and we moved from there to another room. It was also a big room. Now the other room, and also my parents worked. Like my mother didn't work. My father worked, and he made shoes, and my mother went to the bazaar. Bazaar means the market, to sell the shoes. And this is how we got money. We lived well. Well, according to the standard, it was well. So what happened? Now this was illegal. So my mother always went barefoot to the market. And when there was an oblave meant they went to catch people or things. She put on the shoes. Sometimes they were too small on her, because otherwise she wasn't allowed to sell new shoes, So she always went, and sometimes she sold them and came home barefoot. So this is how we made a living. Now this story is nice. I had one dress. So we were sleeping, and my father had to go to the washroom, let's call it, and the washroom was in the yard. So he left the door open. My dress got stolen. Somebody came in and stole the dress. Luckily, it was summer, and I didn't have a dress to wear. So I had to walk around in my slip. till my mother went to the market and got a piece of material and made me another dress.
So you didn't go to school?
That was summer.
Summer, okay.
So I didn't need a dress. I didn't have to go to school. So I went about till grade 3 in Russian school, and then the Polish school opened because they made the Russians and the Polish government in London had this agreement that they're going to make an army and send that'll going to be fighting side by side with the Russians. So we're going to go home soon. I need to know Polish. So I transferred to Polish school.
Did you still remember your Polish?
Ja jeszcze rozmawiam po polsku.
No, not now, but then, because
yes,
you...
much
so
better than now. Yes.
So you didn't forget from when you lived in Poland.
No. I still speak Polish.
Did your parents at some point, and you learned Russian along the way in Russia?
Oh yes.
Where did that happen, or how?
Well, I went to Russian school.
And before that, you didn't know any Russian?
And my parents learned it from the street. My father was very good in languages. He learned it very, very fast. Oh yeah, my mother not so good, but my father was my father was fluent in Russian, very fluent in Russian. I was very fluent in Russian also.
You mentioned that Jambul was the place where you came into contact with the Muslims.
Pardon?
You said that in Jambul you came into contact with Muslims because the population was Muslim.
Yeah, Muslim, yes.
Yeah. In what way did you come in contact? What was the contact between you and them?
When they lived there, they lived there. I mean, these were the natives of Kazakhstan. Their husbands was taken to the army, to the Russian army. They speak Russian, and they also spoke I don't think they spoke Arabic or something. They spoke Russian, but they were Muslims. And how did we find out? Ramadan. For 30 days, the landlady didn't eat. She only ate in the morning or at night or something like that. This is where we find out that they were Muslims. But they were Russian citizens. And they spoke Russian and everything except for the religion.
Did you come across any anti-Semitism among them?
No. There's one thing though that was there anti-Semitism or wasn't there anti-Semitism? I don't know. But no. More from the Russians than from the Muslims because they were calling us Žide. That means Jew.
The Russians you mean in the school?
The Russians in the school and Russians in the public in general, okay? Now in Jambul it was okay, I'm not going to say no, but then what the Russians did is they arrested men, like oblavis, they used to call it oblavis, and when they made the oblava, and any man they found on the street was arrested for absolutely nothing. And my father was arrested a couple of times. And one time, I remember exactly what happened. We went to visit my father, my mother and I, and my father said to my mother, come back tonight and bring me a bottle of milk. And because there was food, we weren't lacking food or anything, butter, food, whatever, meat, whatever. We weren't lacking anything at all. Bring me a bottle of milk, and he told her to make the cork, with papilla, in other words, with paper. But my mother understood what it was. So she bought a bottle of milk, and she made the cork with 500 rubles inside. Like the cork was like rolled up with 500 rubles and a piece of newspaper on top. And we go to, my father was in jail. He was already shaved and everything ready to send out. And we went there, and my mother was afraid to go close to the jail because she's going to be arrested. So I went, and I gave the guard, and I told him for who it is. And he gave it to my father, and that night my father came home. He bribed him with the 500 rubles. So in the middle of the night, he came home. So that was scary, you know. That was really scary. And he was arrested a couple of times, a couple, maybe more than that, you know. But that time, it really stays in my mind because I was the one that went, you know, to the door of the jail and spoke to the guard to give that bottle of milk to my father.
There were other Jews who came, you know, who escaped there or who were transferred there. Was there a local Jewish community that you remember?
There wasn't. You're not allowed. There was no Jewish community. There was, don't forget religion. First of all, religion, by Russians, religion wasn't allowed, okay? So automatically you don't have gatherings. So if you don't have gatherings, you just don't have anything. That's it. There was no community. There was absolutely nothing.
No synagogue?
Oh, God, no.
How about the Jews that came with you from other places? Was there any contact with these other Jewish families?
Yes, there was contact. Oh, yeah, definitely there was contact. There was contact to a point where I remember in Jambul when we first came, and my mother hired a rabbi she said it was a rabbi, a religious Jew, to teach me the alibis. Because we always knew that we're going to go home, we're going to go home. And my mother said, oh, Yvette, she's going to go home. She doesn't know nothing. She has to know something, you know. I mean, at least to know the alibis, I mean, which is what? The bone of our existence, you know. And yeah, so there were religious Jews that they did a little. Praying was forbidden. During Stalin's time, praying was forbidden. Not only Jewish praying, any praying was forbidden. Any religion was forbidden. All that during Stalin's time, there was no synagogues. There was Orthodox churches, but no assemblies in them. The church was looked like a museum, you know, like you go to visit, but that's just about all.
How about mosques?
I don't remember seeing any at all. Yeah, because I say she was Muslim, and this is when I first encountered the Muslim religion. I didn't even know what it was. It's afterwards that it came to me, okay, that's what it is, you know, but not before. No.
How did the locals dress?
Dress? Well, whatever you've got.
But was there something that was very different? Like did it strike you that they dressed differently from you or the other Jews?
Whatever you had. I guess the landlady, what I remember her wore, so whatever she wore was a little longer, you know. Was it longer because of her being who she was? Or was it because that's what she was wearing? I don't know. I mean, forgetting there was a war going on. I mean, there was still a war going on.
Yes, I know, but it's really quite far from
We were quite far
yeah.
from the war, yes.
Yeah.
We were quite far. It wasn't such a thing as what you're wearing, what you don't wearing. I also remember an incident talking about dress. When I was going to that school, 39, and when I was going home, behind me for days was this little boy, and it looked that he was rich. To me, it looked that he was rich. Why? He was wearing this fur hat with long lapels down like this. And what he had in his hand is, well, I wouldn't call it a whip, but it was a whip, like a branch from a tree. And he got close to me, and he was hitting my legs like this. And I told him to stop, in Russian, and I told him to stop, and he never stopped. One day, also, I'm going back, in Russia you had to bring your own ink to school. And when you finished, you brought your little bottle of ink back home. Okay? So I'm going with that little bottle of ink in my hand, and he is whipping me, and I tell him to stop, and I tell him to stop, and it hurted me, and he wouldn't stop. So I let him go close while I was uncorking it, took out the cork, and I turned around and I just went whoop straight into his face. Like his eyes, his head, his face, everything with ink. And I ran and I ran. I never saw him again. I don't know what happened to this little boy. Did I blinden him with that ink? I haven't got no clue what I did, because I never saw him again. This one I remember very, very vividly. Yeah.
You mentioned that you went to the Russian school for 3 years.
Right.
Was that for everybody? Everybody went to the Russian school?
It was a public school.
And there was no school in other languages than Russian?
There's no schools of any other languages at all, except, as I say, after that, the Polish school opened in the same building, except they gave them a room, I don't know, 1 room or 2 rooms or something, where I was, my parents, I don't know how I got transferred. Either they knew to transfer me or my parents asked to transfer me. I haven't got no clue. All I know that I started learning Polish at the time, because this is when we knew already that we might go home.
How did you feel about being transferred from one language or environment and school to the other?
I don't know. I didn't. I spoke both languages. I spoke Polish and I spoke Russian at the time, so it didn't really make any impact on me at all. I don't remember really. There was more Jewish people, I think, in the Polish school than it was in the Russian. But then that was the same thing, that maybe because we didn't know, or we were more dispersed, and Polish schools was only there, so everybody had to come into the same, the same direction. And this is where in Jambul that I got sick. This is where I say coming back, and I found lice in the hospital.
What was this sickness? Tell me about this illness you had.
Diphtheria. It wasn't too much medication. How I got out of it, I don't know.
How long did you stay in the hospital?
But a long time. I don't know if it was 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something like that. And then when you go to a hospital, they shave you. I would take off all the hair to keep it clean. But with all that, it wasn't clean.
How did that make you feel suddenly? You are now a little girl of 9, 10.
My mother made me a dress, and she made me a kerchief that goes with it. So when she came to take me home, I had a new dress. That made me feel good.
In the Polish school, you said there were Jewish kids. There were, I guess, non-Jewish kids too, Polish kids, right? In the Polish school. It wasn't all Jewish children.
I don't know. No, I would say if there were, no, there wasn't Polish children, because don't forget the Polacks did not leave Poland when the Germans came in. It's the Jews that left Poland. Mm-hmm. The Polish people, they rejoiced when the Germans came in. So they were, I would say 99%. I'm not thinking about it, I would say about 99%, even not more maybe, they were only Jewish kids.
And who were the teachers? Where did they get Polish teachers?
Well, because teachers also fled Poland in 1939. There was teachers, there was engineers, there was doctors, there was everybody. I remember when talking about doctors, my mother got bitten by a dog in Jambul, really bitten by a dog, oh my goodness, for a whole year.
Let's stop.
Yeah, recording.
So we were talking about the school and the teachers, and you said that you remember doctors. Oh yeah, you were talking about your mother being bitten by a dog, I think.
Yeah, my mother was bitten by a dog, and she couldn't walk a whole year, okay? And it was a Polish doctor that from Poland that treated her. So there was, as I said, there were doctors, there were everybody, you know. There's a lot of dogs there, a lot of dogs there. Well, they had them for security, you know, and they were biting, let me tell you. You better be careful with a dog.
Were there different districts, neighborhoods in Jambil that you remember?
The what?
Different neighborhoods with different kind of
I
population.
don't. There's only the two neighborhoods that I remember. Is where the school 39 was, number, and 36, because we were living there. Then we lived in another house, and that's about all.
And what kind of neighborhoods were these two neighborhoods?
I cannot describe them to you.
No, I mean, were there locals living there?
Yeah,
Muslim
locals and
population,
locals and
Jews?
us, a mixed neighborhood, if that's what you mean. Yeah, a mixed neighborhood. Yeah, a mixed neighborhood. I know. Geographically, I wouldn't know, but it was a mixed neighborhood.
And by the way, this city, we talked about the shtetl, and I asked you about running water, electricity, the roads. What can you tell me about this city in terms of infrastructure?
In Jambu,
Yeah.
the same thing. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have electricity. We heated with the weather was not as harsh as in Siberia or in Ural, but there were still winters. There was still snow, and we heated with wood. You know, the only thing is, it was our stove. Like, we didn't share the room with nobody. We had our one room. Wherever we lived, it was one room. And of course, the washroom was even in the field. You know what I mean? We didn't even have toilet paper. We used leaves from trees.
In Siberia, in Ural, and in
Yeah,
Jambil.
that's right. And in Jambil, exactly. I went to school. We didn't have a cahier and where to write on. But we had newspapers, so we were writing between the lines. You know, you have a black line printed from the newspaper, then you have the space, and then you have another line where we were writing between these lines. That was our paper. We didn't have books. It's just whatever the teacher was writing on the blackboard with a piece of chalk, we copied. I mean, it was a different world.
Did you have running water in the houses?
Pardon?
Running water.
No, there wasn't running water.
So where did you get the water from?
There was a well in the yard. And you go down with a pail, and you crank it up. You put it down empty, you crank it up, and you put it on whatever you had, pots or whatever, you brought it into your house.
Where did your mother shop for food? Now you
On
were
the
older,
market.
maybe you would know.
On the market. On the market. We had plenty of food. We had, in Jambil, plenty of food. That's right. And my father was smuggling. He went to Tashkent. Tashkent did not have flour. So, and Jambil had, see, the distribution, there's no distribution there. At least those days. Now I don't know. There was no distribution. So Jambil had a lot of flour. Tashkent did not have flour. So he was smuggling. And you're not allowed to just say, okay, fine, I'm going into business. So he was smuggling flour from Jambil to Tashkent. And what he brought back wool, knitting yarn. This is how we made also our living. And if he would be caught, he goes right back to Siberia.
Did he do the smuggling alone, or did he pair up
No,
with
he
someone?
did it with, there were two of them. Like we always go in pairs, you know.
Who was the other person?
Also somebody that came the same route as we came, that he knew.
And how did they smuggle? Did they have a cart to go with?
No,
Did
by
they
train,
take
by
the
train.
Mhm. And where did they put the flour so that people don't
He
know?
bought a knapsack on the back.
There was no no inspection in the trains? No.
I guess not. As I said, I didn't go with him. I cannot answer you this question, you know. I guess not. Oh, yeah, he was doing that. You do everything to make a living, you know. And we stayed there, as I say, in Jambil, till the end of 1945.
Did they make any friends there, your parents? Were
Did
there
they have
any
friends? Yeah, we knew people there. We knew people there, but you cannot socialize too much. You cannot form a group because that's illegal. There were so many things that were illegal, you know what I mean? Unreal.
What do you remember as things that were illegal?
As I say, to sell stuff on the market, except for the kolkhozniks that came, for the people that grew the food there, they were allowed to sell it on the market. Like my father to make shoes and go sell on the market, that's illegal. My mother to make you a dress, that's illegal because that's business. You're not allowed to have business at that time. That was all that during Stalin's time. So all that was illegal.
Did they tell you, did your parents tell you you can't talk about this? Was there, how do they make sure that you don't accidentally mention that they sell shoes or that he smuggles flour? What were the restrictions on you as a little girl that you cannot talk about?
Well, I knew, let me remember one thing though, okay, that you grow up very fast. So you do some judgment by yourself and you know it's illegal. Because you're always with adults. You come home, you're in school, you do whatever there, you come home, you're constantly with adults. You hear them talk. So you know automatically that's illegal. You know what I mean? And this is how we know.
Did you have friends in the school or outside?
No, in school, yes. Once I got out of school, I went home and that was it. You don't go one to the other, from one house to the other houses. You don't do that.
How did you get news of what was going on in the wider world?
How
did you get news of what was going on in the wider world?
You don't. We didn't know. We really did not know. The only time that we started to know that things are not going well for the Germans was when soldiers came back and they were like without arms, without legs, you know. So when they came back like that, they were telling, you know. But we didn't believe them either. We did not know. We did not know absolutely nothing what went on in Poland, in the occupied zone by the Germans. We did not know absolutely nothing, because I remember my mother was saying, "Oh, when we will go home, we'll tell them how we suffered." We did not know that we will not find absolutely nobody. No, we don't know. Didn't know. But they came home, and they did not really tell us either that all the Jews perished. They just told us how the front was, how the war was going. That's all, but not really tell us what happened. Because remember, nobody went into the concentration camps till Eisenhower. So nobody knew.
How did you know that the war ended? How did you know about May 8th, 1945?
I don't remember. I don't quite remember, to tell you the truth. But I remember that there was a smile on everybody's face saying, "Oh, the milchume is over." Did we believe in it? Did my parents believe in it or not? I don't know.
You mentioned, though, that you didn't have exercise books in school and you were writing in the lines on newspapers. Yeah. So there were newspapers.
There were newspapers, but I did not read them, so I cannot tell you what it was in them.
How about your parents? Did they read newspapers?
I guess they were Russian newspapers, and my father read Russian, yes. What they printed in them or not, I don't know. As I say, I don't know. Oh yeah, that's when...
How about propaganda? You are in a communist country, you go to school. What kind of propaganda education did you get in school?
I did not feel propaganda in school. All I know is Dada Stalin. Dada Stalin means Father Stalin. okay? And everybody was worshiping Dada Stalin. That's what we called him, Dada Stalin, Father Stalin. There was no anti-Semitism. I didn't feel bad because I was Jewish. Did they know I was Jewish or not? I don't know. I did not really advertise it. I didn't wear any Jewish signs on me. They most likely knew that I am not from there, you know. But I didn't feel absolutely nothing anti-Semitism or something. There's no anti-Semitism, except in Poland when I told you that I was calling Parshiwy Żyd, I did not feel absolutely nothing else. And even then I didn't know what I was saying.
How about Jewish observance, religious observance in your family?
No, my mother didn't light Shabbos candles or things like that, no. First, we weren't very religious to start with, so it's not that we missed it. As I told you, there was this rabbi that she called in to teach me the Aleph Bais. He had a beard. I still remember him, a short little fellow. He had a beard. And the religious people suffered, and she paid him with bread or milk or whatever he wanted. He didn't want no money. He didn't take meat. But other than that, no, I did not feel children don't feel anti-Semitism.
Did your mother observe at least Yom Kippur?
I don't remember. I don't remember if she observed Yom Kippur during the war or not. I cannot answer you that.
This rabbi that came to your house, how often did he come?
About twice a week, 3 times a week, whenever he felt like it or something like that. It was like free.
And what do you remember of these lessons? What did he teach you?
He teach me from the Siddur. That's the only thing that he had. He had a Siddur. Then I told you, this is an Aleph, this is a Bais, Aleph Bais, Bais Aleph Ba. You know what I mean? This is what I first learned, the Aleph Bais.
And all the 3 years that you were there, you had this rabbi come to the house?
No, just a little while. And then after that, when I started going to school already, that was the end of that.
Is there anything, what did your family do when they didn't work and you didn't go to school, like in your free time?
Nothing. Just an ordinary living. The same thing what I do here. I mean, not here, it's a little different, you know. But we didn't go to each other's houses. We didn't entertain. We just absolutely, like in the summer, if there was a courtyard, we met in the courtyard. You know what I mean? The children played hopscotch. That's about all.
Is there any other memory that stands out in your mind from Jambil that you didn't mention yet?
Now I'm thinking about it. No, not really. Like just the incidents, as I say, with the ink and the hospital that I was in. I was always protected by my parents. You know what I mean? Like now that I look back, I think I was overprotected. You know, but I could understand them. And. Not really. And then when the war ended, we said we're going to go home. And as I said to you, my parents said, "Oh, we're going to tell them how we suffered here and all that." And took us 6 months to get home.
How did you leave? How did you manage to leave Russia?
My father bought a what we call a prepusk. In other words, you could compare it to a visa, maybe, or you could compare it to a permission. A prepusk in Russian is actually permission to leave, and he paid 500 rubles because we were afraid that Russia's not going to let us out. So this is how we just by train. Oh, that was by train. Would we arrange?
Passenger train.
I don't remember how the train was aimed. It must have been a passenger train. I wouldn't say a luxurious train, but yes, it wasn't a wagon, that's for sure not.
Where did you go? Did you go back to Poland?
Yes, no. Well, like as I said to you, we went back to Bytom, which was at that time, we were told it's Germany. And the name, as I say, I was big enough to remember. Yeah, and we went, and even then, we didn't believe what happened. But I remember my father going to the train station, and wanting to go back to the shtetl. And he met somebody, I don't know who, and this man said to him, don't go. There's nobody there, and they're going to kill you. I just left, he says, I was there, and I turned around and came back. The Poles are going to kill you. The reason behind it is that they inherit, shall I use the word inherit? Or no matter which way you want to take it, everything what the Jews had. And they were afraid that that you come and you're going to take it back from them. They were still so anti-Semitic. And my father turned around and came back and didn't go.
What were your living circumstances in Bitum?
Pardon?
What were your living circumstances in Bitum?
I don't understand.
Living circumstances. Where did you live?
Where we left?
Where did you live? What kind of accommodation did you have in Bitum?
In Poland, like when
In
we came
Bitum.
back?
No, in Bitum, in Germany, yes.
Okay, what happened then, I don't know from where and I don't know how. A lot of shlichim came from Israel. A lot of people, like, and they formed what they called kibbutzim, which is nothing but a kibbutz is today. So they got so they formed like two ones, one for children and one for adults. And my parents were in the adults and I was in the children's, with the intention of taking us to Israel.
You mean that you lived in two different buildings?
A community, a commune live, if you want to call it, or something like that, yes.
Close to each other, far from each other?
I don't know how many, especially the adults. I don't know how it was, but I know how it was like where I was in. It was a big house, and a big dining room, and a few bedrooms, and each one of us had a bedroom, and children came from all over the place. A lot of orphans. A lot of orphans. I remember near my bed was a girl where she still prayed every night before she went to bed, going on the knees and praying. And the shlichim knew about that, like the monitors, and they did not tell her at all to stop. They just let her do exactly what she's doing. And in the morning, we went to Hebrew school, and she came to Hebrew school, and we danced to Hora, and we learned Hebrew songs, and we started learning Hebrew.
Where was the school? In the same building where you slept?
No, in another building. In another building.
How many of you were in this kibbutz?
Oh, we were a lot.
Like several hundred or
No, we were about 50 or 60,
Okay.
if I remember. Yeah, because I remember in the dining room, and we were told, don't take no food from your parents, because there's a lot of children here that don't have parents. If they could bring for everybody, fine, but just for you alone. And my parents came to visit me. They always bring me something. I went in to eat in the bathroom, and brushed my teeth, and brushed my, wiped my mouth, and not a crumb should be seen.
What kind of food did your parents bring
A piece
you?
of cake, a little cake.
Did you ever go visit them in their kibbutz? No. So how often did you see them in this period?
My parents came once a week.
Do you remember how you felt about suddenly, you spent the whole war with your parents, you slept in one bed with them. How did it make you feel that suddenly you are in a different house, you don't see them but once a week?
No, we were received right away with dancing and with singing, you know what I mean? And there was a lot of children, so I really didn't feel bad. No, I did not feel bad at all. Like, it felt good in a way for me, you know what I mean? Yes, I felt good, because I never had that during all that time.
Did you make any friends here?
There, we were all friends. We were all dancing the Horas. We were all friends. And matter of fact, we were about the first ones to leave from Bitum to go to Parking.
What was you said that kids came from all over, Jewish kids. What
yeah,
was
all
your
over
common
that remained alive.
Yeah.
You know.
What was your common language?
Polish?
Polish. That's interesting.
Polish. There we talked Polish because we did not know enough Hebrew.
No,
but we knew
it's
how to sing in Hebrew. We didn't understand what we're singing, you know. But we just began to learn Hebrew, Polish.
No, I'm surprised it wasn't Yiddish. That's why I said
No,
it's surprising.
it was Polish. It wasn't Yiddish, no.
Which just kind of shows what kind of children could survive.
Well, the children that have survived, and they were specially hidden by Polish people, they did not know Yiddish. And if they knew a bit before, they definitely weren't allowed to say it or to speak it, or their names weren't Yiddish anymore. So during the 5, 6 years of the war, they became like Polish children. They don't, as I said to you, they were sitting, like they were praying, you know, because all these times they were going to church.
Oh, praying, I get it. So not praying Jewish, that's why I was a little surprised why she would get on her
I said
knees.
they were kneeling and praying.
Yeah, and I thought kneeling, but I thought whatever. Yeah,
No,
okay. They were praying.
They were praying to Jesus Christ.
Okay.
That's
now
right.
I get it. Okay.
And the monitors, they didn't stop them and say, hey, you're Jewish and don't do it. Not at all. I mean, you can't take away everything from a child and just say, you were that because of, to save your life. Now your life is saved and you're Jewish. No, you can't do that. That has to go in very, very gradually.
What was the age range of the children in this kibbutz?
My age. Give or
Both
take.
girls and boys?
Yeah, girls and boys together, yeah. We didn't sleep together, or the same room even, you know, but the same age. Yeah.
And you mentioned that you were doing schooling. Did you just learn Hebrew or
Just
were you
Hebrew.
learning
Just Hebrew. No Polish, nothing, just Hebrew. We went to school and just
the language, not subjects in Hebrew?
No, we learned how to read and how to write.
In Hebrew.
But everything in Hebrew, no Polish. This is where my Polish stopped.
How
Right.
did the shlichim speak to you? In what language?
Pardon?
In what language did the shlichim speak to you, children? The shlichim. What was the language they used with
The
you?
shluchim, they use Polish. I don't know how they got it. Like a lot of, they tried to introduce the Hebrew because we went to Hebrew school, but it was difficult because we didn't know enough really to have a conversation except singing and dancing. But they spoke Polish. How they speak Polish, I don't know where they got it. Maybe. But they spoke Polish.
Any religious observance?
I did not go to an observant one, so I don't know. I went to Dror, which is left.
And how long did you stay in this place?
We didn't stay long in Poking and in Bitam.
in Bitam.
We did not stay long in Bitam. I'm just thinking we came in the winter, which is in January. Maybe 4 months, 5 months, because when we got to Poking, it was spring. Why
did you leave? Do you know?
No. Well, first of all, yes. In a way, I could guess. Let's put it this way, because first there was no question of going back to Poland. Okay, after what my father heard. Okay, and then of course after that we heard other things. So there was no question of that. The kibbutzim started to wind down. So I guess the only thing is to go west. That's it.
Did you now want to go to Israel, to Palestine?
My father didn't want to go.
My
father was not a Zionist. My father did not want to go. No. And by the way, and when we went to Poking, we really didn't know where we're going or why we're going or where we're going from there. That was the route that was taken by everybody. Like we were going like sheep. This is where we go now, this is where we go now, this is where we go now. It depends what, and we didn't know what to encounter or what it's going to be. Like when we went, as I say, to Germany, to parking, it was Germany, it was right near Munich. Munich, Feldafing, you know, and all these places, without really knowing where we're going to go from there.
By the way, how did you end up in Bitum in Germany in the first place? Why there? Why did you go there from Russia?
I don't know. I guess maybe what I could think of is with the intention to go back. But the intention was to go back to Poland. This I know. Now, why my father took this particular route, I don't know.
What do you remember of this town itself, the town itself? How big was this town?
It wasn't a big town. No, it wasn't a big town. We did not really walk in the town. Our walk was from the kibbutz to school and from school back.
Where was the kibbutz in comparison to the town?
I cannot tell you that.
But was it in the town?
It was in
outside
the town. It was in the middle of the town. There was tramways, so it wasn't a small town. Yes, there was tramways. I know that.
And did you have any contact with the local population, the local
No.
German population?
No, not at all. Not as a child, I did not. And my parents did not either because they were also in the adult kibbutz. No.
Did they work in the kibbutz?
No.
Do you know what they did?
No, I don't even know how we got money. I don't know. No, they didn't work. My father didn't work there, and my mother didn't work there either. Like as I say, the kibbutzim didn't last. They didn't last very long. You had to keep on going.
So now you move from that town to the Poking displaced person camp. And what were the conditions there?
In Parking?
Mhm.
The condition, well, okay. The conditions were like, we had a long barrack, there we go again, and each family had a room. Thank God for that. And Hebrew schools opened. There was teachers that started teaching us Hebrew, nothing else but Hebrew. Well, mathematics and geography. Geography was Israel, not the world geography, Israel geography, you know.
In Hebrew.
And not in Hebrew, more in Polish, because none of us really knew enough Hebrew to understand the teacher. No, so it was all in the language, the official language, let's say, was Polish, but the subjects were Hebrew. So we were going there. My parents didn't work, but we had UNRWA. I told you about UNRWA. So we had UNRWA. And right away we had help, so they gave us food and, you know, I mean, packages, and they gave us clothing, and it was, for me personally, it was great. I had friends, you know what I mean? And it was a good life. For me, as a child, it was a good life. As an adult, no.
So your parents, you know that your parents did not find their place there?
Pardon?
So it wasn't good for your parents? That's what you
No,
mean?
because adults know they have to work and they have to earn the money, and you cannot stay and live like that forever with hand-me-downs. No, I mean, because that was hand-me-downs. So at first they gave us like raw food. What I mean by raw food, where my mother had to cook.
Where did you do the cooking?
Well, we had a stove, we had a room.
In the room, there was a
Oh,
stove.
yeah. It was barracks, but everybody had his room, and it wasn't too bad. It really wasn't bad. And then apparently the state sent less, where they made a communal kitchen. So you had to go with your pot, and they gave you the soup. That part my parents didn't like, all right? And but we still didn't know where we're going. We still didn't know. I mean, that wasn't a life, you know what I mean? To go back to Poland, then we knew already what happened.
How did you know?
My parents found out. I don't know how they found out. That once we got to Bitum, we knew already what happened. Yeah, because my father wanted to go to Poland, and the man told him that you cannot go because they're going to kill you, okay? And then more and more. Then we went to Germany because there was a concentration camp right near Poking. Well, which one was it?
I'm not sure.
It wasn't Dachau. It was one of the first concentration camps that Hitler had built for his own people. I think it was Dachau. I say, don't quote me on it, but I think that thing. Oh yeah, right. And matter of fact, there are people, like I know my father didn't go, but there are people that went to visit that concentration camp from Poking. So at that time, we knew already that once we got back to Poland, we knew we knew already that that's it. That nobody left.
What kind of communal life was there in Poking that you remember?
Wasn't really like we were free. This I know. Like the adults felt free. I mean, we were talking. We walking on the street. It was able to talk, and it was free. We kids went to school. We came back from school. It was pretty good. Right away, it formed organizations. Like I belonged to the drawer. Like I said, So it was the Hebrew schools. For us children, it was pretty good.
What did you do with the drawer? What activities?
Singing and dancing. And what else does a child need?
Outings? Any outings?
No, we didn't go outing. No.
Did you go into the city from the camp?
Yeah, I was. Well, it wasn't. We cannot say it was a camp. Like I used to say camp, but it wasn't really a camp.
Well, it's called
Like,
a DP camp.
Yeah, you could
so,
go
yeah.
wherever you want to. We went to Munich.
With your parents?
Yeah. Yeah, we went to Munich. Where else did we go to? Went to another one. I don't remember the name of it. It'll get back to me. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right.
What do you remember of this trip to Munich? What did you do
Not
in Munich?
much. Just walking the streets. We just heard saying, "Oh, Hitler comes from here." That's about all that we knew about it. That's it.
Did you go into stores? Did you have any kind of
No.
interaction with the locals?
I had not in Munich. I had connections with a local, with a German. He came to teach me English. My mother hired him to teach me English. We didn't like peanut butter, so we gave him the peanut butter.
Who was this German who came to teach you English?
Pardon?
Who was this German who came to teach you
It was
English?
just a German citizen that lived nearby. I think he was from Feldafing, and he came to teach me English because my mother wanted me to know English. I guess in her mind was one day we'll go to America. That's what I could think. So we would never know English. So this is where I was introduced to the English language in Germany.
And your father, who had been in the Bund in Poland, did he join any kind of organization in Poking?
There was no organizations in Poking. Everything was Zionist. Everything was with the intention to go to Israel. But not too many went. We dispersed. But that was le but, the aim of it.
When did you leave Poking?
Why would that?
When did you
Oh,
leave?
when 1947,
And where did you go?
Belgium.
So how did that come about?
Oh,
Tell
that
me
came
the
out.
story.
Okay. As I mentioned before, my father had two brothers, one in New York and one in Belgium. The three brothers that remained alive that way, including my father, they didn't know from each other where one is or whatever it is, absolutely nothing. Somehow, his brother in New York, I don't know how, found out that my father was alive. And he communicated with my father in Poking. So there you have already two brothers. He also found out that the brother from Brussels, from Belgium, because he lived actually in Charleroi, he didn't live in Brussels, is alive. He communicated with him. So automatically, this is how the three brothers got together. Now we were on the Polish Quarter. So my father, my uncle in New York started to make out papers for us to take us down to U.S., but we were on the Polish quarter, which is one of the worst quarters, the longest quarters, the worst quarter. He got in touch with the uncle, with Benjamin in Belgium, if he could do something. So he said yes, and he arranged for us to smuggle the border to Brussels, to Belgium. Belgium at that time did not let nobody in legally. But when you got in illegally, they did not throw you out. They just gave you an ID card, and it was marked in transit. In other words, you had to leave. Actually, my card I sent back to Brussels, and it's in the Brussels Museum now.
Describe me this smuggling from Germany.
Okay, so the brother that lived there, how he knew how to go about it, I don't know. Excuse me. But for 10,000 francs, he got smugglers. And they got in touch with us, and they said, okay, at that and that time, that and that day, as I say, May 1947, meet us in that place, and tonight we're going to Belgium. The first time, we couldn't make it. It was too dangerous. So then we made 2 weeks after. So it was us three and another man, which I don't know who it was. We walked the whole night, I mean literally walking across the border. And it took a whole night walking till we got to the Belgium side. And we got to the Belgium side. He said to us, okay, you stay here. Like he took us into a field with big grass, and so you couldn't see. And they went away. There were 2 people that smuggled us through, and they went away. It took a few hours, I don't know how long. They came with a car, and they took us into Brussels. And they took us into the Workmen's Circle in Brussels. The 4 of us, I don't know what happened to the other man. Somebody came to pick him up. I never saw him again. And right away they made, we washed up, and they gave us food and all that. And they notified my uncle that we're there, and he came at night and picked us up and took us to Charleroi.
And then what happened?
And then we stayed 2 weeks in Charleroi with him, but it wasn't. It was a small town. I don't know if you're familiar with Belgium. It was a small town, and my father went to visit people that he knew that remained alive from before the war in Brussels, and they said to him, no, you come here, there's more of a Jewish life here and all that. And then we went, he lived in Charleroi and we lived in Brussels. It's an hour by train, it's very close, And this is how we landed up 3 years in Brussels.
What were your living circumstances in Brussels?
Pardon?
What were your living circumstances
Okay,
in
we
Brussels?
had 2 rooms. Well, at first we lived, and when we came in May. I couldn't start school because it was May and June is finished. And my parents went to work right away, illegally, because we weren't allowed to work. So it was illegally that they went to work. I stayed home. And there we had one room what they call garni. That means furnished. And we lived about 3 months. And after that, the living accommodations were very scarce because a lot of people came. We finally got a big bedroom and a kitchen. So, in a 3-story building. And we lived there till 1950.
What did your parents work?
Pardon?
What kind of work did your
My
parents do?
father was still working as a shoemaker, yeah. And actually what he was doing there in Belgium, he was making shoes for the Belgian army.
Illegally.
Illegally.
So how,
There was a middleman in between. Everything was illegal. And my mother was sewing by somebody, like making trench coats. All that illegal. When the doorbell was ringing, there was a tablecloth on the bench where he was working. everything was illegal. And what he did, he had to show, he sent money to his brother. He went to bring it to him, and his brother sent him back money orders, showing that he's supporting us. That if they come ever check on us, hey, you're not working, where are you getting money to, to live, to pay rent, all that. So we had a whole punk with money orders, showing that the uncle, because the uncle from Belgium was very well off. I mean, he's not alive anymore. He was older than my father. He's very well off, so he's supporting us. So he brought him the money in the pocket, and we don't do that in Canada, do we?
You went to school.
Yeah, I went to
What kind
school.
of school did you go to?
I went to a vocational school where they teach you vocational, which I learned how to sew, and they teach you, everything else, like French and literature and math and geography and anatomy, like everything. Down there you go 6 days to school, you don't go 5 days to school. Oh yeah. There I go to learn a new language.
I was going to ask, how did you manage to learn French? How did that go?
Well, I was usually good in languages. I picked it up pretty fast, And not only one language did I learn. I also learned Flemish, because Belgium is 2 languages.
You mentioned something to me when we first spoke, that you were sent to a summer camp, workman's circle.
Yeah, that was good. From the workman's circle. Every summer I went to the sea, to the North Sea. That was great. That was so good. Oh my God, was that good. I had friends, and it was all organized by the workman's circle, we all left. And that was pretty good.
Is that where you learned French?
Well, I learned French there. That was the first, like when it came in May, so I didn't start school. So I went there right away in June, so I learned French there because I was there for 2 months, like July and August. And so I learned some there, and after that in school.
How easy did you find to start school yet in another language?
It was hard for me. It was very, very hard. I must say it was hard. There was times where I was really fed up. I mean, enough is enough. Enough is enough. And but then I mastered my French. I was fine. I mean, I live in French now. I speak more French now than I speak English. I don't fight it. I accept it.
You said that you made friends. Who were your friends? Who were you friendly with?
Jewish people, Jewish girls, Jewish boys, Jewish girls. The same, like their parents belong in the same organization. I belong to the same organization. I played a lot of theater. A lot of theater. We made, oh God, I played so much theater, you can't imagine. Jewish theater and Jewish. Oh yeah.
What organization did you belong to?
Pardon?
What organization did you belong to?
The Bund.
The Bund, you as well? Mm-hmm.
I belonged to the Bund till I got here.
And your father as well? How about your mother?
My father, my mother, yeah. My father was in Bund since he was a boy in Poland.
Why did you leave Belgium?
Because
you like being there.
We left Belgium in 1950 because they were talking about a war was it a war with Korea or something, if I remember? Yeah, they were talking about a war, another war in Europe, and my father said, I cannot go through a third world war. So since we were on that Polish quarter, it took a long time to go to the States. So my uncle, may he rest in peace, came down to Canada because there were a lot of people that came to Canada from the DP camps, the displaced people's camps. Instead of us going through Belgium, they came directly. And he met this woman, she's not with us anymore either, and she said, okay, fine, she'll do it. So she brought us down as family. Now, she wasn't our family. How do you make a family when there's no family? Okay? So what happened was they figured it out. That there, because she was also a different name. Her name, may she rest in peace, was Milstein. After that, I'm going to show you something. Two things. Her name was Milstein. So they made a family that it is one mother but two fathers. So that's why that she is my mother's sister from the same mother, but she has one father, and my mother had the other father, because my mother's maiden name was Singers, hers was Milstein or whatever, I don't remember her maiden name, and this is how she brought us down to Canada.
When did you
There
arrive?
we go with English.
Yeah, when did you arrive in Canada?
26th or 28th of May 1950.
And why Montreal?
Because she brought us down to Montreal. She lived here in Montreal, so she brought us to Montreal.
And were you, I mean, your uncle helped you get here, but was the thinking that from here it's going to be easier to go to the
He
States?
wanted us to continue, but my father was already so tired of traveling, and travel back to a big city like New York and all that, and we just remained here.
So what was, when you first arrived in Montreal, what were your first impressions of this city?
Horrible. Oh my God. I just did not like nothing. I did not like the culture. I did not like the apartments. It was such a difference. I was so miserable. So miserable. First of all, we came in May. So I had the whole summer. The whole summer. You know what I mean? And then I started school. And I wanted to go to French school. I said, I'm fed up with the languages already. I want to go to French school. I can't go to French school because I'm not Catholic. The schools belong to the church. There we go to school, to English school. There we go to Birmingham. Where do we go? Where do I go? I just didn't know nothing. I was like totally lost, And there was, who was there? The Jewish community or something. They helped me out a bit. And okay, you'll go to Barmbing. What's Barmbing? A high school. I said, okay, fine. And I went to Barmbing. I was interviewed by the teachers there where to put me. Now, I don't know the language, but I knew everything else. I knew the maths, I knew the chemistries, I knew the physics, I knew the algebra, and I knew French. Okay? So they put me to grade 10, but I had to fight with the English. I basically made grade 10 and grade 11, and then I said, you know what, I've had it. I'm not going nowhere anymore. So what do I do now? So I went to a business school, and I became a secretary. I started working at Reitman's as an assistant secretary. I did not like secretarial. But I still worked. And after that, I got married.
You're running very much ahead.
I'm ahead of you.
Come back a little bit. So were still your first impression was you didn't like it because you said you didn't like the houses, you didn't like the culture. Can you elaborate on that? What culture didn't you like? Or what was the culture here that you found?
Very Jewish, very English. You know what I mean? It was such a difference between me and the girls in Barmbing, you know what I mean, that I went with the Canadian girls, that we did not communicate whatsoever, so I didn't have no friends.
What was the difference? How would you describe it?
What's the difference? I'm going to give you one example. Mentality. This is number one, okay? Mentality. I was 16 years old, 15 years old, 16 years old. I didn't wear no lipstick. I didn't wear stockings. I wear socks. Now, they wore the lipsticks. They wore the nail polish. I still don't wear nail polish. They wore the nail polish, they wore the lipsticks, they wore the stockings, nylon stockings. I didn't wear nothing of that sort. And also one of the girls, I still remember her name, Esther, but they call her Esther, said to me in a broken Yiddish, and I couldn't understand why they cannot speak Yiddish. Why can't you speak Yiddish? Okay, I don't speak English, I understand, because I just came here. But why can't you speak Yiddish? I couldn't understand that. And a broken Yiddish, she said to me, I'll tell it to you in English, We also suffered during the war because then it was me and another girl that came.
Sorry to interrupt. Don't touch your mic because
Oh,
it's gonna
I'm
be a
sorry.
lot of.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry. So she said in broken Yiddish.
In the
we
broken
suffered-
Yiddish, she said to me, we also suffered during the war. And I did not know. And I says, yeah, what happened? We had to eat the fat chicken because the steaks were sent to the army. I could not communicate with a person like that anymore. So the whole, I'll tell you something, I still today, being 72 years or 70, almost 75 more almost in Canada, I don't have any Canadian friends except one. We speak English, but we don't think the same way. You know.
What didn't you like about the housing? You mentioned that too.
Where the steps outside? Tell me which person and which architect dreams of doing steps outside in a city or in a country like Canada with the Canadian winters? Which I cannot answer this question. I don't think anybody could answer this question. Where did they get their degree to be an architect? And I also found them very behind. Like we Europeans, we knew more about the world than the Canadians that I met here. Like I went through a world. They just stayed in their own four walls. There was nothing in common.
How about the language, the French? How did you get
That's
that?
another story. We finally going to Canada, okay? And I learned from the consulate that they speak two languages, like English and French, and I was so happy. So we came into Canada, and our ship came in right to Montreal because it was May, and the St. Lawrence was not frozen yet. It's still, was. So we come in straight to here, and this lady that brought us down, she came to get us, and we go into a taxi to go to St. Dominic, to her place. No, not to her place. She rented already a double parlor for us somewhere else, but right close by. And she says to me, tell him where you want to go. And I tell him, I still remember, 43. In Belgium, here they say, when they say 70, they'll say 70. In Belgium, they don't say that. They say 73. So I tell him, 4473 Rue Saint-Dominique. He looks at me. He doesn't understand. And I don't understand that he tells me that he doesn't understand because their French is so different. Now they speak well already. I mean, it's okay. It's understandable. Then it was not understandable at all. So I finally told him, 4473 Saint-Dominique. Oh, Saint-Dominique, wait. Now, wait means oui.
So you lived first on Saint Dominique in a
Yes.
double parlor. Did you stay there?
3 months. And then we went next 2 houses away, and we moved on the 3rd floor. There we had the steps outside. And then my father said, I'm not going to live here during the winter on these stairs, you know what I mean? Then we moved to St. Urban, right across from Barambink.
How did your parents find work?
Oh, no problem. Right away.
Did someone help them find work, or they went
Someone
around?
helped them, yeah. But there was the Jewish community here. What they call
The
them?
Jayas? Are you
Jayas
thinking
or
of the
something
Jayas?
like that. Yeah, yeah. Oh, right away. There was a nice incident at work. My mother worked on St. Denis. To show you the French mentality at the time. My mother worked on St. Denis. She was the only Jew except the boss. And my mother spoke a little bit of French, but not much, and definitely not English, but she knew what she was doing. One day she was sick and she couldn't pick up her paycheck. So my mother says, that at that time they gave cash in an envelope. My mother says to me, go get me the pay. I said, okay. So I go and I speak to the girls in French. And they give me the pay and everything is fine, okay. They couldn't understand why I speak French, but my mother doesn't. So they came to a conclusion that my grandmother was speaking French. Because when my mother went back to work, that's what the boss told her, you know, and she came home, she says, that's the mentality those days of the French Canadians.
Where did your father find work?
In a shoe factory somewhere, I don't know. In St. Paul, I think, because St. Paul rings a bell. They didn't have no problems, my parents. They always worked.
So you went to Baron Byng. Any other memories of Baron Byng that you want to share with me?
No, not really. I was very isolated. I didn't socialize with nobody. I didn't speak to nobody. I just went to my classes, came home, did my homework, and just went next day back to Baron Byng and finished up those 2 years. Thank you very much, and I have enough. And then, as I say, I went to a French private secretarial school on St. Denis, and then I got a job. And then this is when life became good for me. This is when I met Muguette at Reitman's. And she said to me, oh, we have a group here, Les Amis de la Belgique et de la France. I mean, a group of, and this is when she brought me into that group. It was just children. We were adults already, like me. Came from Brussels, came from Paris, and this is where I started breathing, having a good time.
Did you not try to find the Dror, Habonim Dror, or other Jewish organizations when you first came here?
No. Well, I belonged to the Arbeiterring, the workmen's circle, for a while, yes. I belonged to the workmen's circle. And then again, the workmen's circle just started to fall apart and everything.
So where did you make so the first friends you made was when you had the Les Amis de la Belgique?
Yeah.
So for the first like 2-3 years you had no friends, basically?
No. There was one girl that I had a friend, just one girl that when we lived on St. Urban Street, and she was a German Jew, so she also came from Europe. They lived on the 3rd floor, we lived on the 1st floor, so she was just the only one really that I said hello to or something like that. Other than that, I didn't have too many friends.
But in Baron Byng, there were a lot of refugee Jews, not just Canadian Jews.
Not really, not in my class, not really. Maybe later, maybe before, I don't know. Because don't forget, there's Jews that came straight from the 3 years that I was in Belgium. Some came directly to Canada, and maybe if we would have still stayed in Germany, we would have done the same thing. But we had the opportunity to come to. Well, we didn't know. We had the opportunity to get out of the DP camps, and that's where we went.
Did your family go to a synagogue, belong to a synagogue?
No, my parents never belonged to a synagogue, really belonged to a synagogue. No, my father wasn't religious, not for
And your mother, did she pick up the kind of customs that she had done in the shtetl?
Well, as I said, she just went to Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. She went to the synagogue, and that's it. Oh, well, other than that, my son is circumcised, and, we named our children in the synagogue and everything. Oh, yeah. But really belong to be members and and follow, like, the Jewish religion to a T? No, we never did that.
You married, so you were in the Reitmans until you got married. How did you meet your husband?
On Park Avenue.
How?
We were walking on Park Avenue, and he had a friend here. My husband is from Holland. The way we went to Belgium, they went to Holland.
From where?
Pardon?
From where?
From the DP camps. So he had a friend here. So he came to visit his friend, and we were just walking on Park Avenue, and we just met. And before I turned around, I had a postcard, and we got a postcard. You answer. You
Was
know.
he living in Montreal as
No,
well?
in Toronto.
So he just came to Montreal to visit his friend. And then you started corresponding?
And then we
or-
just met, and we started corresponding.
So when did you get married?
I got married in 1955.
And
In
when
Montreal.
Did you, and when did you meet him? Like how long was he courting you?
We were courting about a year.
What's his name?
Max Moishi.
And where was he from?
He was also from Poland.
And I actually found.
Well, I told you, remember you wrote down the city? Did you,
Yes, I did find
you manage
it.
to
Yeah.
What was the name of it?
I don't have it here, but I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna call you and let you know because I did find it. I could read it, and I looked it up and I.
Oh, you were
found
able
it, yeah.
to
Yeah.
decipher it?
Yeah.
Good.
So
Because I
what was his story in Europe? What he was from Poland. What happened to them during the war?
The same route, not exactly the same route. What happened was when we went to Gorky, they went to another city, which I don't know, and they did not, and they stayed in that Russian city till the end of the war. They didn't go back, and they weren't in Siberia, they weren't in Ural, they weren't traders. I don't know to which city he went, and they stayed there during the whole war in one city.
And when he came to Canada, he came with his parents.
He came with
Okay.
his parents, yes.
How old was he? When was he
4
born?
years older than me.
4 years older. Okay, so he was born in 31.
Yes, 5th of January.
What did he
1930.
do for a living?
He was telecommunications. He worked for the CN Telecommunications.
So you get married in 1955 in Montreal or in Toronto?
Montreal.
Montreal. Religious wedding?
But
Did you have a religious wedding in a synagogue?
no, we didn't belong to synagogues.
No, but
Oh, the wedding was in a synagogue, yes. On Fairmount Street.
so you had the wedding here, and then did you move to Toronto?
I moved to Toronto, and I hated it.
Why?
Oh, you don't know Toronto, do you? In those days.
Those days, no.
They roll in the carpets. It comes the evening. You know what? The sidewalk. You don't see a person outside. It was horrible. I mean, it was like the smallest city in Europe that you could ever imagine. That was Toronto. And then I said, "We're moving back to Montreal." He says, "Yeah, we're moving back to Montreal." And that's when we moved to Montreal.
Did you intend to work in Toronto, or you were not going to
Well, I was working for Reitmans, as I say, and I was transferred to the Toronto office. So I worked a few in the Toronto office.
And once you came back, did you
I
continue
had a place
working?
in that office. I didn't have no problems finding work.
No, but did you continue working after your marriage in Montreal?
Yeah, I was working for a little while, yes.
So when did you have kids?
Well, my son was born in 1959.
His name?
Pardon?
What's his name?
Jack.
Jack. And
And then I had Rachel in 1962. During the time I was working.
then you lost your husband.
Yeah, I lost my husband in 1971.
And how did you manage after that?
All right. How did I manage after that? Well, I didn't like secretarial. So I went back to business school. And I went into accounting. And then I managed an office from a steel company. And I liked it. I was there about 13 years or so, and then the company got sold. And of course, the office got, so it took me a year till I got accustomed and everything. Then I worked for another company a wholesale food distributor. Down there, the office was differently structured because it was much bigger. So everything was in departments. So I worked as a credit manager, credit and collections over there for another 13, 14 years. I didn't go from one company. Once I went into a company, I stayed.
And that's where you retired from the
And
second
that's when I
company.
retired, yes.
You mentioned that your son is circumcised. Did they get any Jewish education?
He got a Jewish education. Jewish, not Hebrew. Jewish. He went to
What?
Jewish school.
Here in Montreal, which one?
Yeah. It was the Peretz,
Oh.
not part-time, you know, just not full-time Jewish, because he went to public school and then he went to high school, then he went to Vanier and all that. So he got a Jewish education.
And your daughter as well?
Pardon?
Your daughter as well? Your daughter, did she also get
Yes,
the same
yes,
kind
the
of
same
Jewish-
thing with her, yeah.
Did you have a bar
She,
mitzvah?
she had more, because she went already to Hebrew school, like she also went to, you know, to English school, but then she went, after school, she went to the Talmud Torah. Because when she was 9 years old, when my husband died, so I had to arrange, you know, that when she comes home, not to be alone home, till I come home from work. So she went to so after school, she went to the Talmud Torah in Shamedi. I lived in Shamedi at the time.
Did you and your husband buy a house there?
Pardon?
Did you and your husband buy a house there in Shomati?
I had a bungalow, yes.
Yeah. And did your son have a bar mitzvah?
Yes. I taught my children everything what is Jewish, how it was going. And the rest, you have a mitzvah picture right in the back of you. And the rest was, you want to follow, you follow, you don't want to follow, you don't follow. But you have to know.
So
This is how it's being done, you know.
And now in their adult life, how Jewish are they, or how observant are they?
They're not religious. No, they're not. My daughter's married Jewish. My son is not married. But they're not... I have a granddaughter, let her be well. I have two granddaughters, let them both be well. But I'm talking about my big granddaughter, Gabrielle, which is living now in Halifax. And she has got a master's in marine biology. So she's got to work in Halifax. She needs to see. And I had tears in my eyes. I mean, not in my eyes. They were really coming down like that last year when she graduated, when she got her master's. I went for the graduation. And we made her a Kiddush, Shabbos in Shul. And you should have heard her pray. Oh my God, she prays better than a man. And she knows every single little thing. And every Sunday, she's teaching prayers to little boys in shul. I liked it. My son is not married and he's not religious.
How much of your story, war story, did you share with your husband or with friends?
About the story, I don't know really. What stories we shared?
No, is it something you talked about, you know, the war, what happened, what you went through?
We didn't. You know what, for a long time, we just never mentioned, I'm not just talking especially with my husband, but in general, let's say with Mugat and with my other friends, we don't talk about it. It's passé, it's in the back of us. No, we did not talk about absolutely nothing. That's why I say my children will be, my grandchildren will be very happy because they know absolutely nothing about me.
How about your children? How much did you tell them?
Not much. My son was very happy also. My daughter did not say much. She just said that Gabrielle and Maxie is going to be very happy. My son also was happy. You know, he says, oh, now we'll know something. No. And I'm not the only one. We just don't talk about it.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's something that we want to forget. It's passé, it's gone, turn the page.
And yet, Do you feel, or in what ways do you feel that it had an impact on your life?
Yes, it had a very big impact on my life. I think differently from a normal person.
In what ways?
There is a tomorrow. And some people don't think that there is a tomorrow. Let's live today. And I always say, there is a tomorrow. Is it my character? Or is it that I always was thinking tomorrow is going to be better? I don't know. But we definitely, like I'm talking about myself now, I don't know about anybody else, that we are different. And I could see it now amongst the friends, that when we meet a European person that went through, doesn't have to be the same thing, because I did not go through the same thing what Colleen went through. I did not go through the same thing what Miguel went through, you know what I mean, or Irene. I didn't, actually Irene had a very good life. I don't know if you interviewed her or not,
have,
okay?
yeah.
And because I know her past, you know, that she actually had a very good life. She did not feel anything that's going on. But there is a connection. There is something like, there is something. And give me Canadian people, that we haven't got a past. We haven't got a history together. And I think this is where it is. It's the past, it's the history that holds us together.
You mentioned that you have one Canadian friend and everybody else is European.
Yeah, just
they-
one. She lives next block.
Are these European friends all Jewish?
Yes,
And they're all survivors?
and they're all?
Survivors. Holocaust survivors.
Yeah. There is something that holds us together. And we are from different countries. We were different countries, went through something different, different households, the same religion, but practicing or not practicing, you know, it makes a difference, you know. But we sort of fit in we fit in under one roof.
Was your husband the same way in terms of friendships?
No. He wasn't the same way. He didn't go through as much as I went through, because when he went to Russia, they just stayed.
How about your parents' friends? Who did your
They
parents
were all
make
from the
friends?
shtetl. They were all that remained alive from the shtetl.
So Landsman.
Landsman, correct.
Mm-hmm. Why did you decide now, after 70 odd years, to share your story when you didn't share with your kids? Or not much?
Because as I said to you before, I did not feel, compare what I know that people went through. Mine is not tragic. I don't fit into that category. The same thing like I will say to a Canadian that told me that they suffered because they had to eat fat chicken and not steak. This is how I feel.
So basically what you're saying is that you didn't feel for a long time that you were a Holocaust survivor like others.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. I did not have the German whip on me. I did not wear the Star of David, you know, I mean, a Polish family did not bring me up. I was with my parents. I was constantly protected.
So what's changed now that you're
Because they were all after me. And when I mentioned it to my son and to my daughter, and they said, "Oh yes, great. Like this we know, you know, we will know your history." I started thinking about it.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add, Mary?
Anything that I would like to?
Add anything that we didn't talk about, anything I didn't ask and you would like
no,
to say?
No, not really. I think we covered everything, you know. I think so. I didn't even, as I say to you, you brought it out of me because, again, like, it was like, well, so I went there, so I went here, so I went there, big deal, you know what I mean? And I'm here now, and that's all what counts. So I say, you really brought it out of me because I didn't even think about anything at all. I just want to show you a couple of things. I don't know if they'll fit in or not. Before we leave. I went to Halifax, and I got my, I don't even know how to call it. I got my papers when the ship and the boat and everything, but I came here. It's really nice to look at.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I just remember one question. You mentioned that you went back to your
I went back in 2006, yes.
Why? Why did you decide to go back?
I went back to see my roots. I would have never gone back if my father and mother would be alive. It would hurt them. And I would never do that. But in 2006, I have a friend in Brussels, which I told you I'm still friends with her. And we are friends, but we are more than friends. Her father was also from Szczebrzeszyn, that immigrated to Belgium way before the war, and he was killed in Auschwitz. She was saved in a convent, in a church. Her mother, in Brussels, her mother was a maid, I mean, you know, on false papers, and every time, so she was made by people, and the minute that area became dangerous, she went to somebody else, and at the end she remained alive with her mother. Very, very nice. I mean, her mother's not alive either, and we are friends since 1947. And one day we talked, and I went a few times to Belgium back, you know, quite often. And one day we said, "If I lay Poland, we have to go to Poland." I says, "You want to go?" She says, "Yes." I says, "Make the arrangements from Brussels, and we're going." And we were 10 days in Poland. And as I say, I went back to the place where I lived. And I told them, and all of a sudden, so I went into the courtyard, and all of a sudden they saw right away that we are, you know, foreigners. I mean, let's face it, the way we dress, the way everything. And everybody came out to look at us. And I said to them, in Polish, I said to them, "I lived here. I don't want nothing. I just want to see where I lived." And anyways, I went up to the flat where we lived, you know, and all that, and I looked around. It looked familiar. It was, of course, there's changes, you know, but to make sure that this is the place, because why was I so hung up on the well? It's because I didn't want to eat. So my mother, those days, parents ran after the children, you know, with a spoon on the courtyard. So I only wanted to eat at the well. So what happened? So she gave me a spoonful of food, and I looked in and I saw my reflection, and I spit it out into the well. So that was my sign that I'm in the right place, because 5 years old, I mean, let's face it, I didn't trust myself how much I could remember. And I asked her, "There was a well here. Where is it?" And she showed it to me. And I took a picture of that well. And I can't find the pictures. And so I knew that I'm in the right place. You know? And I asked her also, I says to her, the doctor lived, Dr. Sposs lived right here, and there was an apteka. So they showed it to me where it was, because when I was sick, I looked out the window and I admired the flowers, because there was a yard nearby, you know. So I went to the cemetery, and I saw the graveyard that everybody from Szczebrzeszyn was, you know. And there's one place, I told you that my father had his brother that had an orchid, and I went there. I saw, well, of course, that old house is not there anymore. I knew one was was built. And we went to Warsaw, went to Auschwitz camps, and I took, even though I was not allowed to take pictures, but I took them anyways. It's just, I don't know, I just wanted to see. I just really wanted to see. And we spent time, went to Krakow. Krakow was not touched by the Germans, not on the way in and not on the way out. Krakow was exactly how Krakow was. And the reason behind it is that Krakow was once the capital of Poland. And the Germans wanted to make it again the capital of Poland. So Krakow was not touched. But Warsaw was totally rebuilt.
Well, destroyed. The Warsaw Ghetto was.
Well,
totally
on one
destroyed,
side was the Warsaw Ghetto,
yeah.
and on the other side was the Polish uprising.
Yeah.
So Warsaw was totally rebuilt, you know.
Yeah.
We went to see a Jewish play. Imagine being in Warsaw and going to see a Jewish play. We walked up the stairs because there was a small ghetto and there was a big ghetto, adjoined by a staircase like that. We walked up and down. There was one synagogue that's left in Warsaw, a small synagogue. We were there the second day of Passover, so we had Passover meal in the synagogue. We just wanted to see. We just wanted to go. And then the Polish planes. Wait a minute. What is their name? I forgot. It'll get to me. Beautiful planes and beautiful service. On the plane ride, beautiful planes and beautiful service, you know. And we talked Polish. I mean, I talked Polish. She does. She does not know Polish. She was born in Brussels. You know. So yeah, I don't know. In 1973, I don't know if it'll fit in, but it doesn't matter. I'll show it to you. In 1973, my father got a letter. We lived on the Lippe at the time. My father got a letter from the shtetl. He read the letter, and he put it back in an envelope, and he put it in a book. My mother said to him, because I was nearby, my mother said to him, what's in the letter? You understand Yiddish?
Some.
In other words, what's in the letter? And he answered her, Yankel's house is geworden verkauft.
Yeah, Yankel's house was sold.
It was sold. Yankel was his oldest brother. Yankel had an orchard. That I told you I was sitting under the tree, and he had a house there, and he had 4 boys. And what happened was, somebody pretended, Chaim Newson is his name, because it's in the letter, pretended that he's my father, and he sold his house to a Polish man. That was 1973. Before that, before he sold it, somebody was living there, a Polak, that moved in when my father's brother was killed, and he wrote him in the letter that your brother and his 4 boys were shot in his own backyard. Moved into this house, and he renewed it and all that, and he figured nobody's going to claim it. Here comes somebody in 1973. I mean, I have the letter, I'll show it to you. Comes and claims and sells this house, pretending it's my father. So he wrote to my father. How he found the address, I don't know. That my father should go to a lawyer here and intervene that it was sold and claim back the property and sell it to him. My father packed in the letter, never did nothing. Which I don't blame him. And I went to see that house. Now there's already the 3rd or the 4th owner. I have a list of the owners because I couldn't read the letter, but somebody read it for me. You know, so we went to see that house. I mean, the house we went to see, you know, the place. I just wanted to go.
Mary, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for the interview.